Every single day, he endured a brutal beating from the local bullies. The boy was an overweight otaku, living at the absolute bottom of the social ladder. Desperate for a change, he buried himself in his studies, convinced that if he just made enough money, the shame of being a disgusting fat otaku would vanish. But reality was cruel in the end. He was still just an overweight recluse. To make matters worse, he wasn't exactly a genius either. After graduation, the only career open to him was becoming a human punching bag, a professional sparring partner. And frankly, he only landed that gig because the job requirement specifically asked for someone weighing over 100 kilograms. Because of that, his life became an endless cycle of beatings. Then, out of the blue, his manager, Mei Ling, cornered him and demanded he finish the monthly report immediately. He tried to protest that it wasn't in his job description, but after she offered some warm encouragement, mostly in the form of violent punches, he realized he had no choice. The tragedy was, this wasn't new. Half the office had already dumped their workload onto him. Terrified of the consequences, he couldn't refuse. He spent the entire night sobbing at his desk, grinding through the reports while tears streamed down his face. Suddenly, an agonizing pain speared through his chest. In that terrifying moment, the doctor's grim warning flashed in his mind: lose the weight or die. Panic set in. Desperate, he reached out a trembling hand, trying to dial for an ambulance. But fate had one last cruel joke. A notification popped up: service suspended for non-payment. Helpless, the young man simply closed his eyes, accepting that his end had come right there in the office. With his final breaths, a wave of regret washed over him. He couldn't leave the world like this. He needed to change. Summoning his last ounce of strength, he dragged the mouse cursor over to delete his secret study materials folder. Task complete. He rested his head on the desk, finally finding peace. His last dying wish was simple: please, let him be anything but a repulsive otaku in his next life. However, his finger slipped. In a tragic twist, he accidentally clicked send to all mere seconds before a new message pinged. Across the room, Mei Ling looked up, visibly impressed that Wu Lingan's report was already sitting in her inbox. But then, the study folder opened. The entire office froze in collective shock as his private collection broadcasted across the giant conference room screen. Suddenly, his eyes snapped wide open. He is reborn as an infant, wondering if this is truly a fresh start. In the blink of an eye, 20,000 years pass on the Kyushu continent. A young woman clings to his arm, softly calling his name. Xiaoyu reminds him of the pact they made long ago to finally leave the mountain and explore the vast world together. He sighs, remarking that he has been secluded in training for 20,000 years. The time slipped by without him even noticing. Despite his tenure, the young man insists he is nothing but an ordinary mortal, convinced he will only be a burden if they venture down the mountain. Xiaoyu, however, stares at him in disbelief, unable to comprehend how someone who claims to be ordinary can casually lift an entire mountain. It is then that reality sinks in. He has indeed been reincarnated. But this time, he is the young master of a notorious demonic sect. Fearing for his safety because the sect had fallen into decline and could no longer protect him, he chooses to sequester himself away and train in isolation. The girl simply smiles, grateful that his presence saved her from eternal boredom. Meanwhile, the traumatic memories of his past life drive him to train rigorously for 2 entire eons. Yet, after all that time, a sudden realization strikes him as he walks by her side. A colossal serpent erupts from the shadows, confirming once and for all that he has been transported to a high fantasy realm. Despite the danger, he still views himself as the genuine Wu Lingan, a mortal man completely devoid of spiritual roots. As the beast lunges for the kill, he laments that aside from a little bit of physical strength, he has absolutely no powers to rely on. Instinctively, he readies a simple punch. The fist connects head-on, detonating a massive shockwave upon impact. The sheer force obliterates the creature instantly, carving a path of destruction straight through the dense forest behind it. As blood and debris rain down like confetti, he calmly surveys his handiwork. Shrugging, he suggests they roast the snake meat for dinner, a proposal the young woman eagerly accepts. His companion gazes at him with sparkling eyes, utterly awestruck that he just dismantled a golden core level dragon with a single hit. But just as they prepare to carve up their feast, a booming voice interrupts the celebration. Hovering above them on a flying sword, a man glares down, accusing them of stealing the prey he had been hunting. It is instructor Xiao Chunho from the Shuantian Academy, and he immediately identifies them as scum from the Demonic Sect. The young man stares back, his expression completely blank. He calmly denies the accusation, genuinely confused as to how this stranger managed to track them down. Then, without a shred of dignity, he drops to his knees and begins bowing profusely. The instructor scans the pair, sneering when he realizes he is dealing with nothing more than a fox demon and a mortal with zero spiritual potential. Convinced they are beneath him, he decides that wasting any more breath on such trash is unnecessary. With a flick of his wrist, he launches a lethal strike, unleashing the second style of his sword technique. The blade tears through the air, but in a blur of motion, Wu Lingan snatches it out of the sky with his bare hand, leaving the instructor paralyzed in disbelief. Still bowing on the ground, he nervously apologizes for accidentally catching the weapon, leaving Xiaoyu completely baffled by his submissive behavior. His adversary refuses to accept reality. A mere mortal could never stop a flying sword. Enraged, he turns his glare toward the girl, accusing her of using secret arts to protect the boy. But after a brief moment of hesitation, the instructor's expression twists into something far more sinister. Deciding that death is the only cure for their arrogance, the man strikes, his twin blades slicing through the air with lethal intent. But in a blink, Wu Lingan snatches the steel mid-flight. He doesn't counterattack. Instead, he bows respectfully, begging the instructor to take his life if he must, but to spare Xiao. The instructor doesn't listen. With a wave of his hand, he conjures a storm of blades, launching dozens of them straight at the girl. Zero hesitation. Wu Lingan blurs into motion, stepping between her and the steel rain. His hands move like phantoms, intercepting every single projectile before it can graze her. When the dust settles, he is standing there, arms full of confiscated swords. He looks sheepish, actually apologizing for catching them out of sheer instinct. The instructor freezes. His brain cannot even process the impossibility of what he just witnessed. Panic sets in. His posture collapses from aggressive to submissive instantly. "Senior," he stammers, bowing low, claiming it was all just a terrible misunderstanding. He begs for his weapons back, desperate to flee, but just as he reaches out, a terrifying blast of energy screams past his ear. Boom! A massive fireball obliterates a section of the distant forest. Intimidated, or perhaps just polite, Wu Lingan hands the swords back without a fuss. The instructor stares at his own trembling hands, then at the devastation behind him. Realizing how close he came to death, Wu Lingan turns his back on the enemy, casually mentioning they need to hurry home. His father is waiting for dinner. But as they walk away, Xiao pauses. She glances back at the trembling man. Her eyes darken with killing intent. She whispers a cold threat, breathe a word of this to anyone, and he is dead. The instructor nods frantically, terrified out of his mind. Wu Lingan calls out, and she instantly reverts to her cheerful self, skipping to catch up. The instructor is left alone, watching them drag a giant serpent carcass like it is a twig. Once they vanish, his legs give out. He collapses to his knees, sweat pouring down his face. Who in the world were those monsters? Then, the fear shifts to malice. He sneers, thinking their little peaceful life is about to end. A twisted laugh escapes his lips. He will report this to the Academy's old ancestor. Those demonic cultivators will pay in blood. Meanwhile, Xiao points out the obvious Lingan just humiliated a cultivator. But he waves it off, stubbornly insisting he is just an ordinary guy, not a match for real warriors. She argues that the instructor only attacked him because he looked like an easy target, someone without spiritual roots. Lingan shrugs, explaining that is exactly why he trains his physical body so hard. Xiao watches him, thinking he is completely oblivious to his own god-tier strength. Still, she finds his cluelessness kinda cute. He really has no idea he's a powerhouse. The scenery shifts as they venture deeper, rugged mountains rising against the skyline. Lingan hauls the massive meat chunks toward a dark cave entrance. A weathered sign stands guard, warning of a sealed demonic sect and unforgivable crimes within. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy. A giant cauldron simmers over a roaring fire. Shadows swirl, and a terrifying figure steps forward. He booms a warning death to anyone foolish enough to trespass in the demonic sect's territory. Unfazed, Wu Lingan just grins, I brought snake meat. Instantly, the terrifying killing intent vanishes, replaced by drooling excitement. From the shadows of the ceiling array, ragged figures rush forward, pressing against the bars. Meat. It smells amazing. We are starving. Lingan smiles warmly. To the world, they are monsters. To him, they are the uncles who raised him. But one figure remains unimpressed. The leader turns his face away, radiating grumpiness. It is Wu Di, the Sect Patriarch. He huffs, asking if Lingan even considers him a father anymore after all. He has not visited in a whole 3 hours. Lingan explains the hunt took longer than expected, but Wu Di cuts him off. He is sealed, not blind. He knows exactly what happened out there. The Patriarch narrows his eyes at Xiao, accusing her of corrupting his son, tempting him to leave the mountain again. Lingan quickly steps in to defend her. Wu Di roars, absolutely forbidding it. The sheer volume of his refusal leaves both Lingan and Xiao stunned. 20,000 years, Wu Di bellows. I have been sealed for 20,000 years, but I have not forgotten how treacherous those righteous hypocrites are. Do you want me to bury my own son? The pain in his voice makes Lingan lower his head in apology, but the hesitation on Lingan's face says it all. The Patriarch explodes again. He has heard enough excuses to last another 20 millennia. Lingan's quiet resolve, however, silences the old man's rant. Finally, Lingan speaks up. He is done hiding in the forest. Even if the whole world hunts him down, he has to go. The uncles cry out in protest, calling him naive. He is the last hope of their bloodline. Leaving the barrier is basically suicide. Xiao steps forward, cutting through the noise. He already met a righteous cultivator today, she reveals, and he dropped him with one punch. Lingan tries to interject. It was just a misunderstanding, but the cat is out of the bag. Wu Di pauses, a flicker of wonder in his eyes. Could the boy really be that strong? But he shakes it off, shouting, he has no spiritual roots. He is just a civilian. How will he survive against true masters? He demands. Xiao bites her lip, the worry contagious. Wu Di points a shaking finger. Do not get cocky just because you swatted a few flies. You are not invincible. I know I am not invincible, father. Lingan replies calmly, his eyes burning with determination. I do not care about power. I need to find a way to break this seal and set you free. And I cannot do that from inside this cave. Wai whipped around to face the others, demanding to know if they'd spilled the secret to his son. They all vehemently denied it. Memories flooded the young man's mind. His father, even trapped within that seal, had never stopped worrying about his safety. But he wasn't a child anymore. He stepped forward, declaring that it was finally his turn to protect the old man. Just then, Xiaoyu cut through the sentiment, pointing out a critical detail they had all overlooked. She reasoned that since the boy possessed no demonic aura, his true identity would remain completely hidden. The others nodded in agreement, yet Wui wouldn't hear of it. He knew the risks any cultivation advancement would unleash that suppressed aura and tear the boy apart. Determined, the son turned on his heel, asking them not to resent a choice he'd already made. But the moment his back was turned, his father's voice boomed out, commanding him to halt. An object went sailing through the air. Lingan snatched it instinctively, his eyes locking onto the item, with Xiaoyu leaning in to take a look. Bewildered, the young man turned the object over in his hands. What exactly is this? The elder explained it was an exam token for Xuantian Academy, suggesting it be his first destination. The group instantly buzzed with excitement that Academy was legendary for churning out golden core level cultivators. Xiaoyu questioned the logic, but Wei countered with an old adage, the most dangerous place is often the safest. It clicked. The young man realized that among the countless cultivation paths at the Academy, he might finally find one that worked for him. He wasted no time, stuffing his belongings into a massive bundle. Moments later, he emerged with luggage the size of a boulder, announcing his departure for Xuantian Academy. Curiosity getting the better of her, the fox girl asked how the father acquired such a rare item, but he kept his lips sealed. Why finally admitted the hard truth: he could no longer protect his son. Sending him to the academy was the only way to ensure the boy's survival. While the young man secretly studied a map, the patriarch pulled the girl aside to discuss the enigma surrounding Lingan's constitution. He implored her, a nine-tailed fox approaching emperor level, to keep the boy safe. Xiaoyu raised a hand, acknowledging the gravity of the request. Then, her priority shifted. But who's gonna bring you guys food once we're gone? In the background, the entire group froze solid as the realization hit them. Y bellowed for everyone to dig in, declaring it their last decent meal for a while. Xiaoyu bid them farewell, telling him to savor the moment. But the second she turned to leave, Y shouted for her to wait. The girl shot back a warning that she definitely wasn't fetching more snacks. Wai's expression darkened. He reminded her that the world was teetering on the brink of total collapse. His voice dropped low as he warned that the dormant power inside Lingan had to awaken soon. Time was rapidly running out. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the massive, imposing gates of Xuantian Academy. An instructor barked orders at the crowd, organizing the chaotic line and warning them not to cut. Candidates scrambled to ready their exam tokens, weighed down by his luggage. Young Wu Lingan scanned the area, praying he wouldn't attract attention. The instructor explained the procedure. Tokens must be placed into the stone lion's mouth to sniff out any spies. He wasted no time calling the first candidate forward. The hopeful student placed his token in the statue. It glowed warmly, validating his entry, and with a quick thanks, he hurried inside. Next, the instructor bellowed. Sweat beaded on the next participant's forehead, terrified his fake token would trigger an alarm. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the air. The examiner announced a demonic cultivator had been caught red-handed, quite literally, as the statue clamped its stone jaws tight around a candidate's arm. A bystander whispered in horror that the stone lion never releases its grip once it detects an anomaly. The trapped man screamed for mercy, but the instructor coldly ordered the guards to drag him away. Moments later, the examiner and another candidate pointed straight at Lingan. You're up. Eyeballing Lingan's massive backpack, the instructor branded him suspicious and ordered him to insert his token immediately. Muttering the instructions under his breath, Lingan approached the statue, his hand trembling slightly. A sudden tremor vibrated through the courtyard floor, unnerving the other candidates. Lingan hesitated, then thrust his hand into the lion's mouth. The statue began to glow, and the instructor started to confirm the ticket was valid. But just as Lingan exhaled in relief, the creature's eyes flared up, crimson energy surged, and snap, the jaws clamped down hard on his arm. The force was so great that the stone lion's head snapped clean off its base, still locked onto his limb. The rest of the statue shattered into rubble, leaving the instructor standing there, mouth agape, completely baffled. With the heavy stone head still biting his arm, the young man offered an awkward apology, frantically trying to gather the broken shards from the ground to fix it. The instructor pointed a shaking finger, accusing him of being a demonic cultivator and screaming for his immediate arrest. Pinned against the wall by the guards, he struggled to speak, desperately insisting that his admission ticket was the real deal. But the instructor cut him off, explaining that the guardian lion wasn't malfunctioning, it was programmed to attack the instant it sensed demonic energy. The realization hit the young man like a truck. Hanging around that shady crowd had contaminated him with a demonic aura without him even noticing. Suddenly, a command thundered through the courtyard. Xiao's voice, ordering everyone to freeze. She stepped into the light, scolding the cultivators for their recklessness while the crowd whispered, wondering who this mystery woman was. The instructor narrowed his eyes, demanding to know why a member of a monster clan was daring to interfere in academy business. Unfazed, the young woman grabbed Lingan's arm, pulling him close. She declared herself his guardian, loud and clear. That shut the crowd up. Murmurs rippled through the candidates. If he had a guardian like that, the kid had to come from a serious background. Xiao didn't back down. She challenged the instructor to take a closer look at the actual origin of the admission ticket. The man glanced at the item lying in the dirt, and his eyes went wide. He recognized the insignia immediately. It belonged to the legendary #1 sect in the world. She then dropped the bombshell. That sect had been wiped out 20,000 years ago, and Lingan was the last successor left alive. A confused student asked how the most powerful sect could get destroyed, only to realize the joke. The sect's name wasn't a description. It was literally called the #1 sect in the world. Seizing the moment, Xiao argued that given the relic's ancient history, it made perfect sense for the ticket to have a little demonic residue on it. The instructor paused, weighing his options. This was a diplomatic minefield, and he knew he had to tread carefully. He let them go with a strict warning: one wrong move, and they were done. As they walked away, Xiaoyu whispered to the boy, telling him to loosen up before his tension gave them away. Just act natural, she hissed, and he mumbled the suggestion back to himself like a mantra. The camera pans out to reveal the breathtaking architecture of Shantian Academy, where a sea of fresh faces was gathering at the base of the massive welcoming tower. High above them, Instructor Mei Yanli stood like a statue, silently judging every single soul down below. Master Hang Lu Hong stepped up beside him to ask about the fresh meat. The instructor nodded. This year's crop had some serious potential. He pointed out the heavy hitters in the crowd B, from Eugene Peak and Young Master Tashanka of the Huan sect. Down in the courtyard, Tashanka wasted zero time. He propositioned the girl for some duel cultivation, but she shot him a glare that could kill, telling him to get out of her sight. The crowd buzzed with rumors. That girl wasn't just anyone. She was a certified super genius, the daughter of the Eugene Peak Master himself. Bai scoffed, turning away. Her father was right. None of these amateurs were worth a second of her time. Up on the tower, Instructor Mei praised the overall quality, but then he paused, frowning. He sensed an odd presence mixed in with the herd, right as Wu Lingan was trying his hardest to look invisible. Master Hang laughed it off, assuming it was just some kid trying to flex their power level to show off. But Instructor Mei wasn't buying it. Being that flashy before the first test was a recipe for disaster. Suddenly, an assistant burst onto the scene in a panic. The instructor stepped off the ledge, floating in midair above the courtyard. The students gasped, totally awestruck by the display. He introduced himself as Mei Yanli, the head examiner, and officially announced the start of the evaluation. The rules were simple: survive every stage, or go home. Only the winners would become disciples of the academy. Watching from the ground, Lingan squinted. That instructor looked strangely familiar. Mei Yanli caught his eye immediately. You, why are you staring? The boy froze, mind racing for an answer. He pointed a shaking finger upward. There's a loose, shiny thread hanging from your robe. The instructor hovered there in dead silence for a beat. Then, without warning, he nosedived straight toward the students. Landing with a terrifying grin, he leaned in close to the rookie. Good eye. I look forward to seeing how you perform. But then, Instructor Mei froze mid-motion. He tried to play it cool, barking at another student for standing in the wrong spot. But he was physically stuck hanging there. Bai watched in confusion. Why wasn't the instructor flying properly? And did that newbie really just call out a wire malfunction? Master Hang winced. That kid just signed his own death warrant by embarrassing the examiner. Snapping the wire that held him, the instructor dropped to the ground. He coughed, claiming it was just a joke to lighten the mood, and quickly announced the first phase. Wu Lingan stared blankly. Was this guy insane? And did he really have to rip his shirt off to start the exam? The students gasped, noticing the man's ripped physique and the suffocating pressure radiating from him. Someone in the back shouted out his identity. He was the legendary master of the sacred sandbag physique. It was a bizarre ability that blocked normal spells. Instead, his body acted like a sponge, absorbing attacks and converting the kinetic energy into pure power. Basically, against anyone at his own level, he was completely invincible. Lingan was horrified. Did you have to be a total masochist to be a cultivator these days? The instructor spread his arms wide. The test was simple. Everyone had to step up and punch him in the face so he could measure their worth. With a wicked smirk, the examiner thinks he has this in the bag by rigging the test. He is sure the brat will fail. He singles out Wu Lingan, ordering him to step up. The boy just shrugs, warning him to brace himself because he hits hard. The instructor laughs, boasting that not even a nascent soul cultivator could scratch him. But his arrogant speech is cut short. Before he can even finish his sentence, a fist smashes directly into his face. Boom! A massive shockwave rips through the instructor, obliterating a section of the academy behind him. The other candidates stare, paralyzed with shock. High above, Master Hang watches from the window, sweating profusely, unable to process the insanity unfolding before him. He stares down at the devastation, a colossal crater carved into the earth, stretching all the way through the mountains. His face drains of color. He knows he is done for. Down in the rubble, the instructor is slumped on the ground. Smoke rises from his body, eyes rolled back, foam frothing at his mouth. The man is out cold, totally oblivious to the gravity of the situation. The young man turns to the group and asks innocently, "So, did I pass?" The other candidates just shuffle backward in terrified silence. Suddenly, a fox leaps nimbly from the rooftops. Xiaoyu lands and watches the scene, noting how Lingan has instantly become the center of attention. In the crowd, a student whispers, confused. But the theory said his defense was unbreakable. How did this happen? Bid turns to the new kid, demanding to know how he managed such a feat. Meanwhile, Master Hang rushes to the unconscious instructor. A quick scan confirms it that Punch packed the raw power of a late-stage nascent soul master. Suddenly, the man's eyes snap open. He springs from the ground and charges at the boy with a crazed look on his face. He gets right in Lingan's face, screaming about a sneak attack. The young man just apologizes politely. I get it. One candidate realizes his sacred body wasn't active. He was caught off guard. The examiner barks. That last one didn't count. Use cheap tricks again, and you are disqualified. A blinding golden aura erupts around him. Look, a student shouts. That is the ultimate defense of the sacred golden body. The instructor puffs out his chest. Hit me with everything you have got, kid. You won't move me an inch. No hesitation. Wham! Lingan drives a heavy fist straight into the man's stomach. The fist sinks deep into his gut. The man stands rigid, not budging. The crowd gasps. Whoa, he didn't even slide back. But Master Hang narrows his eyes. Something is wrong. A second later, the truth drops. Instructor May has passed out standing up. Hang steps in, shouting, All right, everyone passes the first round. Cheers erupt, though everyone is whispering about the terrifying strength of the new guy. A student steps up to Wu Lingan. I am Zhang Ma, successor of the Huan sect, he says, listing off his impressive skills. I have decided. He grins. You are my sworn brother now. Lingan looks visibly uncomfortable. Suddenly, the floodgates open. The others swarm him, begging, let us be your younger brothers too. Another boy pushes through. I am Tanji from the Tanji sect, he says, offering detailed intel. Then he looks sheepish, but I have zero data on you, brother. Lingan smiles. There is something familiar about this guy's friendly vibe. So, Tanji asks, which sect are you from? Lingan scratches his head awkwardly. None. I'm just a lone cultivator. The crowd suddenly parts like the Red Sea. The genius from Eugene Peak has arrived. She glares at him. You like the attention. I will show you the difference between us. She spins around and walks off, leaving him watching her. In the shadows, a hooded figure watches silently. Do not celebrate yet, Master Hang yells. He pulls out a remote and slams the red button. The floor lights up beneath them. Panic rises. What is happening? Sappy, the group is teleported into a dark, enclosed space. Outside, the structure is revealed to be a giant metal cube. Inside, mechanical gears grind as robotic creatures and armored knights emerge from the darkness. They are trapped, surrounded by towering warriors in heavy plate armor. From above, the students look like ants compared to the steel giants circling them. A projection of Honglu Hong appears, smiling. I am the master of the Jikao Pavilion, and your examiner for Phase 2. These puppets are my creations, he explains. The test is simple: dodge the hidden weapons. They will be launched continuously. He lights an incense stick. Survive until this burns out. Tanji's eyes go wide. He shouts, watch out, the weapons on those mechs are lethal. In a heartbeat, the machine's optics flare to life, locking onto biological signatures. The automated sentinels wasted no time, unleashing a barrage of raw energy toward the candidates. Chaos erupted as the students scrambled desperately, diving away from blasts that shattered the floor tiles into smoking debris. The mechanical barrage was relentless. Dozens of examinees were caught in the shockwaves, forcing them to forfeit the test before it had barely begun. Watching from the observation deck, Hang Luhong noted that the disciple from the Heian sect was handling the pressure with surprising ease. Down in the arena, Zhang Ma triggered his defensive art, standing statue still as laser beams sizzled past him. He smirked, boasting that his blind spots were impenetrable right before a beam slammed squarely into the center of his back. The examiner face-palmed, regretting the jinx. His attention then shifted to the girl from the Eugenian sect, whose combat prowess was turning heads. Suddenly, the young cultivator's gaze sharpened. She sensed a shift in the battlefield. Meanwhile, Wu Lingan solved his problem by physically burying a robot into the earth. Logic dictated that if it was underground, it couldn't shoot him. The examiner roared in fury, reminding everyone this was a speed test, not a demolition derby. He threatened immediate disqualification for any further property damage. Wu Lingan offered a sheepish apology, while young B recalled her father's warnings about men like this. Instructor May snatched the control unit, declaring that words were wasted on a brute like that. He mashed the buttons personally, determined to teach the boy the true terror of the puppet array. Across the arena, robot limbs detached and flew to the center, fusing instantly into a colossal mecha that loomed over the lone cultivator. Tianji gasped from the sidelines. Noting the fusion's power output exceeded the Golden Core stage, this was no longer a standard test. He added a chilling detail: the puppet's arsenal was coated in lethal neurotoxins. A student with arrows sticking out of his back groggily complained of dizziness, while the staff frantically scolded him for getting hit. The head examiner argued this was practically murder, but Instructor May didn't care. With a twisted grin, he asked if they really wanted an arrogant brat passing their academy's exam. The giant puppet unleashed a storm of poison needles. In a blur of motion, Wu Lingan danced through the deadly rain, untouched. He skidded to a halt, glancing over his shoulder as realization dawned on him. The other candidates behind him hadn't been so lucky. They were riddled with the projectiles he had dodged. He muttered a quick apology for the collateral damage. Infuriated by the boy's survival, Instructor May cranked the difficulty to maximum. In seconds, Wu Lingan was encircled by a towering wall of giant mechs. The air shimmered as Wu Lingan flared his aura, bracing for the impossible odds. Over the loudspeakers, the instructors barked a final warning: one scratch on those expensive puppets, and he was out. Sprawled on the safe zone floor, Tianji promised to light incense for his friend's funeral, while the others realized the immediate danger had passed for everyone but Wu Lingan. The Eugenian heiress watched coldly, thinking his showboating had finally caught up with him. Even surrounded, the young man didn't flinch. He realized there was only one path forward. He crouched low, channeling explosive power into his leg muscles. With a sonic boom, he launched himself vertically, soaring toward the giant puppet and delivering a skull-crushing blow. The instructor's jaw dropped. He couldn't process how the boy was flying while simultaneously shattering their strongest unit. The crowd murmured in confusion. Sustained flight was a feat reserved exclusively for Golden Core masters. Lying comfortably on the ground, Tianji clarified the misunderstanding that wasn't spiritual flight. It was just a monstrously powerful jump. The candidate stared in disbelief at the sheer physical might on display, while Tianji casually suggested his friend take a breather. But Instructor May knew gravity always wins. He anticipated the landing trajectory and deployed a bed of razor-sharp spears exactly where Wu Lingan would fall. Unable to smash the puppets without failing and unable to land without dying, the young man was trapped. His eyes locked onto the nimble Eugenian cultivator dodging below. A light bulb went on. He plummeted with pinpoint precision, landing delicately on the very tips of the spears, standing nose to nose with the girl. He dropped to one knee instantly. Flashing a charming smile, he asked, "So, what's the plan?" The sudden intimacy left her stunned, her mind racing to her father's description of dangerous perverts. Before she could react, he ducked behind her, using the swordswoman as a human shield against the incoming robotic onslaught. Outraged, she screamed at him to fight his own battles, but he just apologized, claiming it was his only tactical option. Furious, the young woman spun around, slashing her blade at the nuisance clinging to her back. She decided he was a bigger threat than the robots. Now dodging poison needles and a vengeful swordswoman, Wu Lingan cried out for mercy. Seeing his friend in a hopeless three-way deadlock, Tianji offered a supportive thumbs up from the floor. Impressed by the boy's evasive skills, Instructor May laughed maniacally as he manipulated the puppets, wondering how long the duo could dance. Amidst the chaos, the Eugenian girl glanced at the timer. The incense stick had burned down to its final ember. Sudden inspiration strikes. Lingan stops his frantic sprint and spins around to face the examiner head-on. With a volley of arrows screaming toward him, he expands his chest, inhaling a massive, lung-stretching breath. The instructors watch in stunned silence. Is he trying to get himself killed? But as he exhales, a violent gale erupts, forming a vortex that blasts everyone backward. The sheer pressure sends the other candidates skidding helplessly across the arena floor like ragdolls. Instructor May grips her controller white-knuckled, convinced it is a bluff. But the wind is undeniable, ferocious enough to make the hair on their arms stand straight up. The examiner barks that this stunt won't pass him, but the boy just smirks. "Hold that thought," he says. He points a finger at the timer. The testing incense has not just burned down, it has completely disintegrated. Proctor Hang freezes. That gust did not just push students, it flash burned the time limit. What kind of monster is living inside this kid's body? Tang shouts over the noise, claiming Chief Lingan's chaos actually serves a deeper, noble purpose. But as he claims the chief is seeking benefits for all, the wind shreds the clothes off half the candidates. Some benefits. The swordswoman turns beet red in mortification. Meanwhile, the disciple from the Eugean sect flees the scene, vowing that this grudge is far from over. Lingan stands there, scratching his head in confusion, totally ignoring the bruised and bleeding participants groaning around him. A deep voice booms from the shadows, noting it has been ages since a freshman this interesting walked through their gates. Suddenly, Yu Tianning, the dean of Xuantian Academy, steps into the light, applauding the chaotic energy of this year's assessment. The students squint skeptically. Is that really the dean hard to trust a guy whose wig is currently sliding off his scalp? Tang immediately reprimands them. This is the legendary Red Flame Shura, Yu Tianning. He recounts the blood-soaked tales of how the dean slaughtered demonic cultivators, dyeing his hair red with their very blood. The candidates stare blankly. The epic backstory lands with a dull thud. One brave soul raises a hand. If the legend is true, why is the red hair clearly a cheap toupee? Ignoring the heckler, the dean asks the boy's name. Wu Lingan, he answers. High above on a rooftop, Xiaoyu watches the disaster unfold. She bites her lip in panic. Why is the dean here now? And how on earth can she stop Lingan from offending the most powerful man on campus? Desperate, she projects her voice into Lingan's mind. Fix his wig, she orders. Put it back before he realizes. Instructor Mei steps in, begging her superior for mercy regarding the boy's recklessness. The dean snaps back, questioning her competence. All the while, the hairpiece inches perilously closer to falling off. Lingan moves. In a blur of motion, he launches himself upward to slap the wig back onto the dean's shiny dome. The old master blinks. The kid's speed was incredible, borderline invisible. Lingan lands with a bright, innocent smile. Just returning something you dropped, sir. No need to thank me. Instructor Mei's eyes go wide. She tries to signal Dean Yu, her face pale with horror. The dean stands there, confusingly dignified, unaware that several sharp darts are now embedded in his skull. On the roof, Xiaoyu screams into her hands. I said fix the wig, not stab him with hidden weapons. Mei throttles Lingan by the collar, accusing him of assassination. I got confused, the boy yelps in defense. The dean waves them off. Calm down. Do you really think these toys can harm a master like me? Mei points a shaking finger at the blood trickling down his face. The dean scoffs. It is part of the test. Lingan looks at him with awe, while Xiaoyu face palms, realizing the old man is just saving face. Let me get that for you, Lingan offers. He yanks a dart free, and a fountain of black sludge erupts from the wound. Eyes rolling back, the dean crumbles. Instructor Mei dives, catching him just before he hits the floor, revealing his hairy legs under his robes. The students whisper among themselves. So, just an arrogant old geezer with hairy leg prosthetics then. Examiner Hang quickly clears his throat, announcing that all survivors have passed phase 2. The next hell begins tomorrow. As the instructors haul the unconscious dean toward the alchemy hall, the students stand around awkwardly. One candidate frowns. We passed. But why does the air still feel dangerous? Terror strikes. He looks around and realizes they are still standing in the kill zone. Panic erupts. Master Hang, they scream. You forgot to turn off the murder puppets. Far away, Instructor Mei watches the courtyard descend into chaos, noting that Lingan is suspiciously safe from the carnage. In the shadows, Instructor Xiao Chunhua smirks. He did not expect the boy to show his hand so early. Meanwhile, the students weep about their near-death experience. Cut to the student dormitories, deep into the night. Xiaoyu finds Lingan sweating through a late-night workout. Why aren't you sleeping? She asks. The boy does not stop. Because, he grunts, I have a test to crush. She nodded in agreement, acknowledging that dominating the upcoming assessment was critical to securing the Academy's top-tier training resources. But then, her tone shifted. She purred a reminder that even the strongest need balance between grinding and rest. She leaned in, offering to personally help unblock his meridians, though the glint in her eyes screamed ulterior motives. Praising his relentless ambition, the girl closed the distance, invading his personal space. Suddenly, disaster. She trips over a loose stone near the threshold, lightning fast. The cultivator snatches her from midair, steadying her with a warning to watch her step. Internally, Xiaoyu does a victory lap. Her clumsy act worked like a charm. Meanwhile, just outside the dorms, Bid lurks in the shadows, pressing herself against the cold stone wall. She grips her weapon, swearing a silent oath to make Lingan pay in blood for his past transgressions. Snap. A strange noise breaks her concentration. She whips her head toward the source, Lingan's quarters. Her eyes widen, face twisting in confusion as she tries to process the bizarre audio coming from inside. Through the backlit paper window, a silhouette dances. Bid stares at Lingan's shadow, her mind racing to decipher what unholy ritual he is performing. No, she thinks, shaking her head. He is a fresh transfer student. It cannot be. She forces her breathing to slow, creeping closer to get a better angle on the situation. She peers again. The shadow puppetry on the window pane seems to confirm her worst nightmares. The reality, far less sinister. The guy is just going ham on a jump rope his uncles managed to scrounge up for him. Inside, catastrophe strikes. Xiaoyu groans as she knocks over a jar of red flower wine, valuable medicine for injuries. She drops to her knees, scrubbing frantically at the crimson puddles spreading across the floor. But in her haste, her foot finds a slick spot. Down she goes, hitting the deck hard. Outside, Bid steels herself to kick down the door and play the hero. But then the silhouette shifts into something monstrous. A scream of pure terror tears from her throat. She buries her face in her hands, despair washing over her. She thinks she is too late to save the girl. Back in the room, the cultivator asks if she is all right. Xiaoyu brushes it off as a mere fall, but whines that her outfit is now ruined by the sticky red mess. The sight creates a complicated atmosphere, awkwardness level spiking. He averts his gaze. Being a gentleman, he offers to grab her a fresh set of robes and turns toward the wardrobe. Crash. The door splinters inward. Bid stands in the wreckage, blade drawn, screaming, "Surrender, you murderous demon." The tableau she walks into, the young man innocently handing a towel to Xiaoyu, who is currently kneeling on the floor. Bid's mind is already made up. She accuses him of defiling a corpse. Xiaoyu blinks, utterly baffled as to when exactly she died. The young man stands there, completely dumbfounded. Murderous demon, where's this coming from? Panic flickers for a second. Did she figure out who he really is? No, impossible. He shakes the thought away immediately. He tries to explain, but Bid is deaf to reason. She is out for blood. Her power explodes, a shimmering aura enveloping her as she triggers a lethal sword art. She unleashes the 10,000 swords formation cornered. He realizes he has no choice. He will have to get rough to survive this misunderstanding. He blurs into motion like a phantom. He weaves through the storm of energy blades without a scratch. His velocity catches her off guard, but she recovers instantly. "Do not get cocky," she roars, channeling everything she has into her ultimate move, the celestial sword-piercing strike. A massive beam of destruction tears toward him. He does not dodge. He winds up and meets the energy blast with a simple, brutal straight punch. Crack. Bid's eyes nearly pop out of her skull. He just shattered her chi sword with his bare fist. Before she can process the impossible, a shadow looms behind her. Whack. A precise chop to the nape of her neck, a forbidden technique to wipe recent memories. Her eyes roll back, and she crumbles to the floor like a puppet with cut strings, her sword clattering away. The cultivator crouches beside her unconscious form. "Sorry about that," he mutters. It was the only play he had to keep his true power a secret. The technique is tricky, forcing raw energy through the palm directly into the opponent's brain. It leaves her lights out cold. He realizes he's on the clock. He needs to relocate her before anyone stumbles onto this crime scene. Hoisting her over his shoulder like a sack of rice, he slips out the room. Under the pale moonlight, he sprints across the academy rooftops with the girl in tow. Scanning the campus below, he desperately searches for a safe drop-off point. Uh-oh. The swordswoman starts stirring, groaning in confusion. Bam. No hesitation. He delivers another memory-wiping chop to the neck. Sleep. He lets out a heavy sigh. That was too close. His cover is intact, but a new problem is gnawing at him. He is running around the streets with an unconscious woman and realizes he has absolutely no idea where she lives. He is totally lost. Meanwhile, hidden in the darkness, Tenji observes the bizarre spectacle, racking his brain to figure out the twisted relationship between Lingan and Bid. Lingan picks a random door, nudges it open, and decides to commit to the intrusion. He gently deposits her onto the bed. The room looks empty, so he figures there is a decent chance this is her place. But Bid has a hard head. She starts waking up again, muttering, "What is happening?" Whack. Down she goes for round 3. As she slumps back into oblivion, the stranger whispers another apology for the concussion protocol. He starts sweating. Hitting the reset button on her brain this many times might turn her memories into scrambled eggs. Guilt pricks at him, but hey, better a little brain damage than his entire family getting exterminated, right? He takes a moment to look around and freezes for a refined swordswoman. This girl lives like a pig. Suddenly, he froze. Footprints. He'd left tracks all over the floor. Paranoid about leaving any evidence, he snatched up a mop and scrubbed the area spotless. And knowing him, he figured he might as well tidy up her entire room while he was at it. Talk about overachieving. The scene cuts to the dead of night, focusing on a secluded gazebo hidden deep within the forest. A mysterious hooded figure broke the silence, commanding the eavesdropper to show himself. Young Xiaoyu stepped from the shadows, earning a nod of approval from the stranger for managing to track him down. The cloaked man scoffed, bragging that absolutely nothing slips past his gaze. Xiaoyu got straight to the point. He needed a hitman to take out a new transfer student, but the mercenary wasn't impressed, demanding a good reason to get his hands dirty. Desperate. The instructor played his ace card. He vowed to throw his full political weight behind the stranger during the upcoming selection for the next family patriarch. That got his attention. The figure stood tall and demanded a name. The answer dripped with venom. Lingan. The name struck a chord. He instantly recalled that cocky kid from the entrance exam. The instructor laid out the scheme rig, the selection match, and killed the boy in a tragic accident. The hooded man signed on, but warned him, betray the deal, and there would be hell to pay. As the assassin turned to fade into the night, young Master Xiao frantically screamed for him to wait. Turns out, he had a much more immediate problem. A massive aquatic serpent had surged from the water, coiling tight around his leg like a vice. Dignity gone. He begged to be saved. The hooded man stared in disbelief at the sheer incompetence, but, realizing he needed this guy alive, sighed and stepped in. In a blur of motion, he drew his blade, unleashing a razor-sharp wave of energy that sliced through the air. He vaulted forward, delivering a devastating final slash that cleaved the beast in two. As the monster fell, the hooded warrior sheathed his weapon. Done and dusted. But the chaos wasn't over. Suddenly, Xiao Chunhuo came plummeting from the sky, screaming his lungs out as he crashed through the canopy. Moving on instinct, the hooded man snatched him out of the air, catching him bridal style just inches from impact. The instructor marveled at the immense strength of the Xiao family genius, but the genius just snapped at him to let go. So, the man obliged, dumping him headfirst into the swamp water before walking off. Moments later, the spectral form of Master Dan materialized. The hooded man's expression darkened. He warned the spirit that this Wu Lingan was far more dangerous than he looked. The old master nodded grimly, admitting that the power the boy displayed would have been a challenge even back in his glory days. Yet, the man's arrogance returned. He smirked, declaring that no one in this entire realm had the strength to bring him down. And here's the twist. He wasn't just some local prodigy. He revealed the truth. He was a time traveler named Xiaoyu. Originally just an average student from the Blue Star. One fatal crash later, and his soul was violently ripped from Earth, dumped straight into a brutal world of cultivation and martial arts. Reborn as the overlooked young master of the Xiao clan, his new life wasn't exactly glamorous. In fact, destiny called while he was shoveling manure, literally tripping face first into a pile of cow dung. But amidst the filth lay a treasure, a mysterious ring housing the soul of Master Dan. And just like that, his rise to absolute power began. Armed with a classic hero's origin story, he knew the rules of this game. Every enemy, every rival, just fodder for his inevitable ascent. Xiaohua didn't bear grudges, but facts were facts. Wu Lingan was destined to fall at his feet. It was simply written in the stars. Miles away, the man in question let out a confused sneeze, completely unaware that fate had just marked him for defeat. Scrubbed clean and weary from the day's labor, Xiaohua decided it was time to retreat. He stepped out into the quiet night, leaving the stables behind him. But the moment he reached his own quarters, the transmigrator froze. Something about the room felt wrong. Pushing inside, the scent of an intruder hit him instantly. And there she was, Bid, collapsed and unconscious right on his bed. He stared blankly for a second before the panic kicked in. A female cultivator. In his room, if anyone saw this, he'd be dead meat. Cautiously, Xiaoyu crept closer as Bid shifted in her slumber, the sheets rustling softly under her weight. He recognized her immediately, the celebrated goddess of the new generation. Even unconscious, her beauty was undeniable, leaving him momentarily spellbound. Get a grip. He mentally slapped himself. This wasn't the time to be ogling. Shaking off the distraction, he turned his attention to the room's layout. The place was spotless. Why would a high-ranking cultivator scrub his floor and then pass out in his bed? It didn't add up. Unless logic pointed to only one insane conclusion: she must be totally into him. Flashbacks to the comics he read in his past life flooded his brain. He was the protagonist, right? Which meant a beautiful heroine falling for him was practically mandatory. Was Bid the one, his destined soulmate? But his fantasy shattered as he realized something disturbing. Despite the noise, she hadn't twitched. She wasn't just sleeping. Master Dan materialized from the ring, his voice grave. This wasn't exhaustion, her consciousness had been severely damaged. She was trapped in a coma. Xiaoyu immediately jumped to conclusions. Did she scrub the floor so hard she broke her brain? Master Dan nearly smacked him for the stupidity. Ignoring the ghostly rebuke, the young master leaned in. Cultivation might have failed her, but maybe the first aid techniques from Earth could save her life. He positioned himself over the bed, steeling his nerves. It was time to operate. Suddenly, a soft moan escaped her lips. Her lashes fluttered, eyes slowly opening as confusion washed over her. What is happening to me? Suddenly, a deafening crash shatters the silence. Lingan whips around, eyes wide, startled by the chaotic noise erupting from the room behind him. The door flies open as Bid storms out, practically kicking it off its hinges. She spins around, venom in her voice, warning him to never darken her sight again. Left sitting on the floor, Xiaoyu rubs his head in confusion. He asks why she would attack him if she has feelings for him, prompting Master Dan to sigh and suggest the boy might be overthinking the whole interaction. But the young man isn't listening. He concludes that women in this realm are simply naturally reserved, and perhaps leading with a kiss was a bit too forward for her. Master Dan presses him, asking how he can be so certain Bid actually likes him and didn't just walk into the wrong room by mistake. Sporting a fresh bruise on his face, the protagonist grins confidently. The answer is simple: he's a natural-born protagonist, after all. Outside, the young woman paces through the courtyard alone, racking her brain to understand how on earth she ended up in a stranger's bed. A fragmented memory surfaces the moment she confronted Lingan and the accusation that he was practicing demonic arts. The fog lifts, the pieces start clicking into place, and the horrifying truth begins to dawn on her. In the flashback, she remembers accusing Lingan of being a dark cultivator, one who harvests living bodies to fuel his own power. Bid realizes she has stumbled onto a massive conspiracy. That creep in the room wasn't just a pervert, he must be Lingan's accomplice in these dark arts. A determined smile sharpens her features. She swears she will find proof that a thief has infiltrated the Xuantian Academy, no matter the cost. Her rage spills over. She screams Lingan's name into the night sky, a raw promise of vengeance echoing through the campus. The shout jars two female students awake. Recognizing Bid's voice, they exchange worried glances, wondering what kind of intense drama went down between her and Lingan. The next day arrives. The presentation stage is packed. Every student gathered and buzzing with anticipation for the evaluation. Restlessness sets in. Murmurs ripple through the crowd as they complain about the delay. No instructors are anywhere to be seen. Off to the side, Lingan ignores the noise. He continues his intense mental training, pushing his limits even while standing still. Toussaint Xiaoyu tries to tell him to relax about the test, but Lingan shoots back that he cannot afford to let his guard down. From the crowd, Bid glares daggers at him, scoffing at what she thinks is mere showboating. Nearby students catch her reaction. They remember the screaming match from the night before. Connecting the dots to her midnight shout of Lingan's name, the gossip mill starts turning instantly. Tianji slides in with a sly grin, hinting that nobody here knows the real, spicy details of what actually happened. He leans in, ready to spill the story about a secret relationship and what he witnessed last night, but before the words leave his lips, cold steel presses against his neck. Xiaoyu materializes behind him, blade drawn. He threatens Tianji to keep Bid's name out of his mouth, forcing the terrified boy to nod frantically. Warning delivered. He sheathes his weapon and strides away, leaving Tianji collapsing on the ground in relief. The crowd erupts in whispers. They assume this intense guy must be a diehard admirer of Bid to defend her honor with such aggression. Ignoring the chatter, Xiaoyu convinces himself even further that she is his destined heroine, while Master Dan simply watches his disciples' overconfidence in silence. Suddenly, a booming voice commands silence. Mei Rangsing arrives, drawing the attention of every student, including Wu Lingan, toward the stage. He is followed by the instructors Mei Yanli, Yu Tian, and Han Lu Hong, taking their places as the third evaluation is officially announced. Mei Yanli steps forward. He explains that this round isn't a drill, it is a full-contact real combat test. Performance here dictates their class placement to raise the stakes. She reveals that Dean Yuan Sheng will be personally overseeing the entire event. Standing next to Wu Lingan, Tucson Xiaoyu whispers that the dean definitely changed his toupee, but gets a sharp nudge to keep it down. The dean's eyes flick toward them, seemingly hearing the whisper, but he simply nods, confirming the proceedings. One of the instructors slams a button, signaling the start of the selection process. The combat pairings will be decided by luck. Candidates must step up and draw their numbers now. Students line up before a bizarre, penguin-shaped lottery machine. Wu Lingan watches the process, waiting for his moment. When his turn comes, he reaches deep into the machine's mechanical mouth to grab a capsule. Mei Yanli sees his opening. With a flick of his wrist, he launches a hidden projectile, a metal shard with a paper tag, straight at the boy. Wu Lingan blinks, confused. He looks at his hand. He isn't holding a ball, he's holding a torn piece of paper marked 38 attached to a sharp piece of metal. From his vantage point, Mei Yanli watches the successful sabotage with a smug, satisfied smirk. He turns to Xiaoyu, confirming that the target has been forced into picking the rigged number. The instructor starts bragging about his precision, only to be interrupted by a wet, hacking cough. The hooded disciple tells him to shut up and save his breath. Xiaoyu reveals his own number, 36. He frowns, asking if the plan failed since he isn't matched against Wu Lingan. The hooded figure scoffs. The boy clearly doesn't understand the nuance of the strategy. Mei Yanli explains the logic. Wu Lingan is suspected of having a hidden technique. It is better to send someone else to test his limits first before the main event. Right on cue, a massive shadow engulfs the young man. Wu Lingan turns to face a towering giant holding number 37, who sneers and advises the weakling to surrender before he gets hurt. The crowd murmurs in disbelief as Tanji and the other students stare at Lingan's first opponent, instantly realizing this won't be a walk in the park. Tanji's face goes pale as he drops the bomb. The opponent is Wang Tu, a notorious assassin famous for the fact that his targets never live to tell the tale. Towering over Wu Lingan, the killer sneers, revealing he's been watching every move the rookie made in the last 2 trials. His voice drips with venom as he brands Lingan absolute trash and nobody surviving solely on dumb luck and a little brute strength. Wang Tu flexes his aura, boasting that he has reached the peak of chi refinement, and to drive the insult home, he slaps Lingan across the face, sending Tuan Xiaoyu into a blind rage. Lingan holds his furious friend back, urging calm, all while locking eyes with the assassin in a cold, silent stare. Amused by the silence, Wang Tu taunts him, daring him to start the deathmatch right here and now. The air crackles with tension as the crowd holds its breath, waiting for the rookie to snap. But instead of throwing a punch, Lingan drops a bombshell. He apologizes, calmly admitting his spiritual roots are absolute garbage. The onlookers nearly faceplant in shock. Tuan Xiaoyu screams at him for bowing down to the enemy. But Lingan just shrugs, he's only stating facts. Wang Tu steps into his personal space, issuing a final ultimatum: kneel and beg or die. Lingan holds the silence for a heartbeat longer. Then he speaks. Weak or not, he has a heavy burden to carry, and that means he cannot stop fighting. The assassin scoffs, warning him to prepare for a humiliating defeat in the ring before turning his back on them. As the killer walks off, Tuan Xiaoyu surprisingly praises Lingan's guts, leaving the boy completely confused by her sudden mood swing. Out of earshot, Wang Tu reminds Mei Yanli of their dark bargain kill the kid, and secure a spot in the elite upper class. Smirking, the assassin struts away, vowing to show the rookie the true meaning of power, while Mei Yanli mutters that he just hopes Lingan survives long enough to make it interesting. Moments later, instructor Mei Rxing calls time on the lottery. The draw is done, and the first freshmen are summoned to the blood pit. The crowd roars as the first fighter is announced. Number 1, the fierce Biddy. Her opponent enters next number 2, Jongma. He immediately disgusts the audience by lewdly proposing dual cultivation right there in the arena. The crowd rains garbage down on him. Jongma weaves through the debris, bragging that sneak attacks are useless against him right before a stray piece of trash beans him directly in the skull. He deflects a glob of food, but his aim is terrible. It splatters all over instructor Mei Ren. Jongma freezes, frantically stammering apologies. High above the chaos, Xiaoyu and Mei Yanli observe the circus unfolding below. The hooded youth narrows his eyes, his voice deadly serious. He marks Jongma's name on his hit list for daring to lust after a woman who belongs to him. Mei Yanli asks how he got so close to her so fast, but the mysterious boy just smirks. It's simply the magnetic pull of his protagonist aura. Dean Yuaning clears his throat, the sound cutting through the noise like a blade, and orders the match to start immediately to end the farce. The instructor releases Jongma, leaving the pervert standing there, dripping with food waste. Across the arena, Beatty cracks her knuckles. This is perfect, exactly the chance she wanted. Undeterred, Jongma vows to dazzle her with his skills and win her heart. He centers himself, preparing to unleash a high-level secret technique. Shadow clone, he shouts, splitting into multiple copies that fan out across the fighting stage. Tanji quickly explains that these clones possess incredible speed, but Wu Lingan watches with a bored expression, completely unimpressed. The clones circle Biddy, their voices overlapping in a mocking chorus, betting she'll never find the real body in time. Biddy tracks him silently. Then, in a blink, the illusions shatter, leaving the real Jongma exposed in the center of the ring. She moves like lightning, launching a savage kick. Jongma scoffs, asking if she really takes him for a fool. But a split second later, his face contorts. He crumples, writhing in agony, screaming that she used a despicable low blow. Yet, through the pain, a creepy grin spreads across his face. Not everything is what it seems. Jongma pulls back his robe to reveal a metal crotch plate. He explains that with his history of harassment, he's always prepared for angry women aiming between his legs. Since his kindness was rejected, he decides the gloves are coming off. He begins to charge raw energy in his palms, no longer holding back. He hurls an energy sphere at Beatty, forcing her to weave desperately through a barrage of follow-up strikes. From the stands, Wu Lingan questions the strategy. Why waste time? Why not just blast the chi sphere directly? Tanji breaks it down range and power depend on the cultivator's level. For a student, merely condensing chi into a sphere is a feat worth bragging about. Lingan absorbs this, realizing just how monstrously powerful his father and Tuan Xiaoyu truly are by comparison. Back in the ring, Beatty dances around the attacks unscathed, asking if that's the best he's got. Jongma waves a hand dismissively. Playtime is over. He warns her not to get cocky as he prepares to redirect his energy for a finisher. Jongma leaps backward to create space, flashing a victorious grin as he shows off his absolute control over the floating chi sphere. He screams that his skill is beyond her comprehension and fires the blast point blank. But Beatty is faster. She sidesteps the attack with terrifying agility. Regaining her balance instantly, the female cultivator flows like water, evading every subsequent sphere he throws her way. The instructors watch from the high seats, analyzing the High Sect's signature technique, the manipulation of raw spiritual energy outside the body. A student leans in to explain the mechanics to Wu Lingan, noting how energy threads puppeteer the larger attacks, a detail that leaves the protagonist visibly impressed. Down in the arena, Baidi stares down the massive, approaching energy sphere with unwavering resolve. She unsheathes her blade, looking less fearful and more annoyed that she has to dirty her sword on such a wretched opponent. With one fluid motion, she calls the attack pathetic and cleaves the sphere in two, sending a shockwave straight down the line that slams into her adversary's skull. The impact is devastating. Jongma's protective armor shatters like glass, leaving him completely stunned. He hits his knees, not in anger, but in awe, convinced that any woman who can wreck him this hard must be the love of his life. The romance is cut short as his eyes roll back and he faceplants onto the arena floor, out cold. Wu Lingan studies the aftermath, trying to reverse engineer how that energy control actually worked. Instructor Mayrin steps forward, ruling that Jongma is unable to continue and officially declaring Baidi the winner. While the stadium erupts in cheers for Eugene Peak, the Sword Queen stands alone in the center of the ring, stoic as ever. Standing next to Tushan Xiaoyu, Lingan wonders if all cultivator battles are this intense, when suddenly, a girl materializes next to him clutching a massive chicken leg. Startled by the sudden arrival, Lingan spins around to see who it is. The pink-haired girl ignores him, fangirling over Baidi's power and sighing that she hopes to be that strong one day. She steps closer to Lingan, who finds himself taken aback by her imposing height. She accidentally bumps into Tushan Xiaoyu, startling the fox, who immediately assumes this physical contact is exactly the kind of thing Lingan enjoys. The newcomer catches Lingan staring and assumes his hungry gaze is directed at her snack. Reading the room, she extends the drumstick toward him, asking with a grin if he's craving a bite or something else. Lingan tries to resist, but his stomach growls from the training, so he accepts the food, sending Xiaoyu into a panic as she realizes she failed to notice his hunger. The little fox is devastated that a total stranger understood Lingan's physical needs better than she did. In the ring, the instructors order the unconscious Zhongma to be dragged away to clear the floor for the next bout. Mouthful of poultry, Lingan asks for a name, and the girl beams, introducing herself as Murong-chan, a student who enrolled last year. Xiaoyu asks if that makes her a senior, but Murong gets evasive, hiding behind her meat bone and muttering, "Not exactly." Murong-chan sheepishly admits the truth, she's technically a repeater. She failed her grades miserably and is here today to retake the placement exam as a last resort. Between bites, she casually mentions she'll be expelled if she fails again. And Lingan notes that for someone on the brink of ruin, she seems incredibly chill. Tanji slides into the conversation with a lore drop. Senior Murong is actually from a legendary alchemy family revered across the 9 provinces. He reveals her genius. She developed a technique to fuse alchemy with cooking, turning bitter medicine into gourmet meals without losing potency. Lingan freezes, realizing the chicken leg he just devoured was actually a high-grade spirit pill. Guilt washes over him for eating such a priceless treasure, but Murong-chan just waves it off. She simply smiles, saying she can't stand seeing people go hungry, a level of pure kindness that leaves both Lingan and Xiaoyu speechless. Touched, Lingan calls her an angel, while his jealous fox guardian grumbles that it's really not that big of a deal. Suddenly, the crowd parts like the Red Sea, making way for the star of the show. Baidi marches through with laser focus, ignoring the fans, but Murong-chan fearlessly jumps in her path to ask for an autograph. The pink-haired girl waits with bated breath, but Baidi just stares at her with ice-cold eyes, creating an awkward silence for Lingan and his group. So, the top ranker denies the request, coldly advising Murong to be more careful about the company she keeps. She then locks eyes with Lingan, promising him that she will uncover the truth about his actions the previous night. As she storms off, the crowd begins whispering, wondering if Tanji's rumors about a connection between them were true. Murong-chan turns to him, eyes wide, asking if they're close, but Lingan sweats, claiming he barely knows her. Ignoring his denial, she grabs his hand, begging for an introduction because she's desperate to reach that level of strength. The moment is cut short as Instructor Mayren's voice booms over the arena, shouting Murong-chan's name. He yells at her to get on stage immediately, and as she sprints off, she shouts back to Lingan not to forget her request. Tushan Xiaoyu hisses at him to stay away from that weirdo, but Lingan shakes his head, insisting she's good people. He figures anyone who cares that much about feeding a hungry stranger can't be bad. On stage, the instructor warns Murong that this is her final strike, and the girl takes a deep breath, shifting gears for combat. Determination burns in her eyes as she steels her resolve. She must secure at least one victory to remain in the academy. The alternative, returning to that dark, hopeless void, is a nightmare she refuses to relive. Breaking the silence, the instructor announces the next bout and summons candidate number 36 to the stage. Answering the call, a mysterious figure cloaked in a heavy hood begins the slow walk toward the dueling platform. Murong Eris locks eyes with her approaching adversary, and her stoic expression crumbles into absolute shock. The hood drops. Xiaoyu reveals his grinning face to the crowd, announcing with theatrical flair that he has finally arrived. Combatants take their remarks. The instructor raises a hand to signal the start, while the two students stare each other down, the air thick with killing intent. High in the stands, Yu Tianxing and Hong Lu Hong are baffled, wondering how a noble lady of the Murong clan ended up struggling in a basic freshman assessment. A stern-faced student provides the harsh answer she failed every single evaluation, including alchemy, and is on the verge of repeating the year. The consensus is grim if the senior student, fails to win a single match here. The academy will likely expel her and ship her back to her family in disgrace. Tang then remarks to Wu Lingan that while the girl can cook powerful medicinal dishes, she possesses zero martial talent. Center stage, the instructor prepares to drop the signal. He leaps backward to clear the zone, shouting that the battle has officially begun. Murong Eris clenches her fists until her knuckles turn white, telling herself that losing is simply not an option. Her opponent, however, is too busy flirting. He comments on how unexpected it is to fight such a cutie, fully convinced his veteran experience guarantees an easy win. His arrogance skyrockets as he drifts into a fantasy where his overwhelming strength impresses both her and Ha bit enough to join his personal harem. Reality hits fast. The girl screams a battle cry and launches herself forward, throwing a desperate straight punch. Smack. Her fist connects squarely with his jaw, catching the daydreamer completely off guard. The impact launches him backward, but she gives him no quarter, immediately pressing the advantage with a follow-up strike. Wu Lingan is baffled. Why is that idiot just standing there grinning? Tushan Xiaoyu guesses he must be lost in some happy delusion. Inside his mental realm, Master Dan screams at him to wake up, but the fighter brushes it off, claiming plot armor will save him because he's the protagonist. Back in the real world, Senior Murong unleashes another straight punch aimed right at his face, but this time, his instincts kick in. He catches her fist inches from impact. Attack neutralized. The young man narrows his eyes, warning her that the same trick won't work on him twice. In a fluid motion, he executes a shoulder throw, hurling her body across the arena like a ragdoll. She hits the deck hard. Her opponent rises to finish it, but she scrambles back to her feet, guard raised, refusing to stay down. He blurs into motion, boasting that sloppy, amateur hand-to-hand combat will never touch him again. From the crowd, Wu Ling shouts encouragement for the senior, much to Tushan Xiaoyu's visible annoyance. Gasping for air, the young woman looks spent, her stamina draining rapidly with every second. But she's not done yet. Defying all logic, she whips out 2 massive legs of meat and begins frantically devouring them right in the middle of the duel. Tang quickly explains she's consuming high-grade spiritual food to boost her combat stats, making Wu Lingan realize this isn't a snack break, it's a power-up. He reveals the terrifying truth that food is actually disguised cultivation pills, and ingesting that much raw energy at once is a recipe for disaster. Boom! The accumulated energy detonates, unleashing a blinding flash of light that forces the young man to shield his eyes. When the light fades, Murong Eris stands, revealed her clothes shredded, but her body enveloped in a terrifying, surging aura of power. Wu Lingan and Tushan Xiaoyu gawk from the stands, unsure if they just watched her clothes explode or if her actual body is breaking down. Across the stage, the young man wipes a bloody nose and lets out a mocking, arrogant laugh. He claims that even this desperate last stand won't save her, though the dramatic effect is ruined by someone shouting at him to wipe the snot off his face first. Ignoring the banter, she grits her teeth, declaring she has to try even if it's impossible. With a primal scream, she charges, her footsteps cracking the very stone of the arena floor. She barrels toward him like a freight train, forcing the fighter to brace himself for a massive collision. Master Dan cries out a warning her raw strength has just surpassed the chi refinement stage. The fighter snaps back that he's well aware of the danger. He warns that this match isn't finished yet. Time to stop playing games, he declares he's finally going to fight seriously. Her fist crashes into the flat of his defensive sword with the force of a wrecking ball. The sheer weight of the blow stuns him. In a split second, her punch shatters his guard completely and slams directly into his body. Wu Ling is awestruck by the senior's explosive power, but Tushan Xiaoyu sees the truth. She is pushing her body far beyond its breaking point. The observer notes grimly that at this level of intensity, she'll burn out in a matter of minutes. Dust settles over the ruined arena. Eris stands amidst the debris, her chest heaving violently as she gasps for oxygen. Sweat pours down her face, her energy completely spent. Through the haze of exhaustion, she whispers a single question. Did she actually win? High upon the observation deck, an instructor gasps, fearing the boy has been beaten to death, but Dean Yu Tianqing remains calm, signaling for patience. Eyes locked on the arena, the dean mutters darkly that the real battle hasn't even started yet. Suddenly, a blade cuts through the smoke. The swordsman is genuinely rattled. He never expected a country girl to push him to the absolute brink. Bloodied and bruised, the opponent staggers to his feet. He hefts his blade onto his shoulder, a dark grin spreading across his face as he declares that playtime is officially over. He wipes the blood away and snarls, warning that the kid gloves are coming off right now. He vanishes in a blur of motion. Eris Meringue can barely track him as he circles her, his speed reaching a terrifying new level. The fighter launches skyward. Lingan screams a warning from the stands, above you, but the swordsman crashes down like a meteor, pulverizing the arena floor. By a hair's breadth, the girl leaps backward, barely escaping the impact zone. But he is not done. A sinister blue energy blooms in his palm. He vows there is nowhere left to run. With a roar, he hurls the Blue Heart Fire Lotus technique straight at the young woman. The energy detonates. A massive explosion of azure flame swallows the combatant, obliterating the stone beneath her. In the stands, Lingan and Tuchan Xiaoyu stand frozen, horror-struck. An agonizing scream pierces the smoke as the relentless flames shred through her defenses and sear her clothes. Tuchan Xiaoyu frantically covers Lingan's eyes to shield him from the gruesome sight. The instructors gasp, recognizing the deadly Blue Lotus flame. This match is as good as done. The swordsman stands amidst the clearing smoke, arrogant and untouched, demanding to know what is wrong. With a twisted smirk, he asks if she's ready to yield, but Eris just glares back, her eyes burning with defiance. She doesn't speak. Instead, Eris whips out a mysterious vial and downs the contents in one desperate gulp. Boom! A violent, fiery aura erupts from her body, shattering the glass vial against the stones. Her opponent steps back, completely blindsided by this sudden surge of power. With a primal war cry, she charges a shockwave of raw energy blasts outward, ripping up chunks of the arena floor as she closes the distance. It is a barrage of fury. She unleashes a storm of rapid-fire punches, hammering against his blade until he struggles to keep his guard up. High above, an instructor watches in disbelief, wondering if the girl has completely lost her mind. Did she just level up? Lingan asks, stunned. But Tuchan Xiaoyu shakes his head. The fox grimly explains she is overdosing on performance-enhancing pills to force a breakthrough. The little fox realizes the grim truth. Aris isn't just fighting, she is literally burning away her own life force to stay in this match. Blood sprays, but she doesn't stop. She hammers away, screaming over and over that defeat is not an option. Facing such insane stubbornness, the swordsman's eyes go cold. He decides to end this permanently. He executes a new technique. Encasing her in a gigantic Blue Lotus cage, it detonates instantly, blasting her limp body across the ring. He lands, sword raised for the kill shot. Recognizing the lethal intent, Instructor Mei Ranking screams from the sidelines to stop the fight immediately, but the swordsman is deaf to reason. He ignores the order and unleashes the Blue Lotus Whirlwind, a finisher meant to destroy. "Stop! It's over!" the instructor shrieks, panic rising in her voice as she realizes she can't intervene in time. Broken on the cold stone, Eris stares up, wondering if her story really ends here. A memory floods her mind, plates shattering, food spilled, and a family elder screaming at her for disgracing their bloodline with her useless recipes. In the vision, she begs to know why the Murang family is enslaved to traditional alchemy, insisting her culinary creations hold the same power as their precious pills. Her answer, a sharp slap across the face. She is told that cooking is a stain on the clan's honor. They exile her to Juantian Academy with a cruel ultimatum: succeed, or be forced into an arranged marriage as a failure. She remembers being tossed out like trash, branded useless, a source of shame to her own kin. The memory fades on the image of a little girl huddled on the ground, weeping in frustration. But she swore then to prove them wrong, to show that her cooking could rival any alchemist's pill. Back in the arena, as the lethal energy closes in, she wonders if anything she did actually mattered. Then a miracle. The killing blow halts inches from her face. Lingan stands like a shield between Eris and the blast, blocking the impact with his own body. His expression is stone cold serious. He stares down the swordsman, declaring he won't let a good person like Senior Meringue come to harm. "You think you can stop me?" the swordsman sneers, impressed despite himself. "You've got guts, kid. I'll give you that." Before another blow can land, Instructor Mei Ranking flashes into the ring, separating the students and officially terminating the match. The referee points to the standing fighter, declaring the swordsman the winner by default. With a cocky twirl of his blade, the victor turns his back on the carnage and swaggers toward the exit. He pauses to toss a threat over his shoulder. "Make sure you win your next round, kid, or you won't get the honor of facing me yourself." Clueless to the danger, Lingan earnestly replies he'll do his best to pass the preliminaries. Tuchan Xiaoyu face palms, scolding Wu for being so dense in the face of a death threat, but the boy just stands there, completely missing the point. Just then, Meringue's body betrays her, a violent cough racking her frame, the exhaustion from the battle finally taking its toll. Wu Lingan catches her as she stumbles, asking if she's holding up, and the young warrior whispers a breathless thank you for the save. Her face falls, etched with misery. She didn't win a single round despite pouring her heart and soul into the fight, and tears of sheer frustration begin to stream down her face. Suddenly, she retches, vomiting right there on the spot, causing a startled Wu Lingan to bark at Tucson Xiaoyu to grab some healing pills fast. He cradles her, trying to soothe her trembling, but the fighter shakes her head, insisting she's actually fine. She sheepishly admits she just ate way too much before the match, causing Tucson Xiaoyu to recoil and complain about how absolutely revolting this whole scene is. Wu Lingan kindly offers to help the veteran Meringue down from the stage so she can rest, but before they can take a step, Instructor Mei blocks their path, demanding to know where the boy thinks he's going. With a cold stare, the instructor informs him that there's no time for breaks. It is his turn to step into the arena. The evaluator steps aside to reveal his opponent Wang Tuyu, who locks eyes with him, wearing a smile dripping with disdain. Wu Lingan turns to Tucson Xiaoyu, asking her to help Meringue off the stage, and the injured woman offers a quiet wish for his good luck. As she hauls the woman away, the fox spirit grumbles internally about being reduced to a babysitter for this foolish human, just as Instructor Mei orders both sides to prepare for combat. Standing alone in the arena now, Wu Lingan faces his adversary, who waits across the stone floor like a predator. Wang Chu sneers, mocking him, claiming he's just thrown away his last chance at survival, but the young man simply stares back, his expression a mask of stony silence. With a swift leap, the instructor clears the zone and officially signals the start of the death match. Wang Chu slams his foot into the ground, declaring that if the boy wants to play silent, he'll just have to kill him to get a reaction. Waves of anxiety ripple through the audience as they gauge the enemy's power, but Tucson Xiaoyu scoffs, assuring them they have no idea what Wu Lingan is actually capable of. Radiating confidence, she declares that no ordinary attack will take him down, while in the arena, Wang Chu eyes his prey, winding up for a finishing move immediately. Wu Lingan frowns, confused by his opponent's bizarre stance, wondering what kind of technique requires that posture. Suddenly, Wang Chu roars, unleashing a dark, violent aura that shreds his own clothes from top to bottom in a cloud of fabric. A blinding light detonates in front of Wu Lingan, forcing him to witness the spectacle in stunned silence. When the light fades, his adversary is standing there in hot pink underwear, performing the grotesque iron pillar dance, a visual shock so potent it gives Wu Lingan an instant nosebleed. The psychic damage is area-wide. Spectators in the stands recoil, clutching their faces as they too suffer spontaneous nosebleeds. Revolted, Tucson Xiaoyu gags, explaining that this move is so visually nauseating that the human mind literally cannot withstand it. Instructor Hanglu Hong grimaces, commenting that such a vulgar display is a stain on the academy's reputation, but Dean Yuening cuts him off, noting that the grotesque display is merely a diversion. He points to the crowd, asking if the instructor hasn't noticed that something physically wrong is happening to everyone present. Down in the ring, Wu Lingan drops to one knee, clutching his stomach as nausea overwhelms him, barely able to keep his balance. Seizing the moment, Wang Chu leaps forward with his massive weapon, screaming for him to die, and brings the pillar down with a chaotic, earth-shattering smash. Despite the dizziness, Wu Lingan manages to throw himself aside, barely dodging the crushing impact. With a feral growl, Wang Chu doesn't let up, spinning his body to unleash a whirlwind version of the iron pillar dance, trapping Wu Lingan in the vortex. The audience is breaking down, people covering their eyes and vomiting as the sheer nausea of the technique becomes unbearable. Sitting beside Tucson Xiaoyu, Meringue suddenly widens her eyes, realizing the true nature of the attack. She yells that the disgusting dance is a trick. It's a cover for the toxic gas being vented from the iron pillar itself. Wang Chu grins triumphantly, boasting that the entire arena is now saturated with his invisible, poisonous smoke. The poison takes hold. Wu Lingan clamps a hand over his mouth, trying to filter the air, while Tucson Xiaoyu screams from the sidelines, calling Wang Chu a despicable cheater. The assassin merely laughs, retorting that on a stage where life and death hang in the balance, there is no such thing as fair. From a high vantage point, the hidden patron watches with satisfaction, praising the mercenary's ruthless efficiency. Beside him, Xiao Hu Ho admits he almost fell for the visual trick too, but the instructor corrects him coldly. He did fall for it. Wang Chu charges again with a blood-curdling war cry, commanding his opponent to die in agony. Wu Lingan tries to react, but he is paralyzed. His limbs refuse to obey, and a splitting headache shatters his focus. The stoic mask finally cracks, replaced by genuine panic as the gravity of his situation sinks in. Seeing his prey struggle, the assassin taunts him, mocking his futile attempt to fight when he can't even summon 10% of his strength. He closes the distance for the execution, promising to end the boy's misery in a heartbeat. The pillar swings squarely into Lingan's face, launching him backward with a sickening crunch as the enemy watches with utter contempt. Wang Chu doesn't stop. He launches into a frenzied combo, raining down brutal, heavy blows that batter the young man's defenseless body. From the stands, Murang screams for him to forfeit, while Tucson Xiaoyu watches in terror, sensing the looming shadow of defeat. Desperate and terrified, the fox girl pleads with the instructors to halt the death match immediately, but instructor Mei Langsing remains unmoved, refusing to intervene as he claims the boy still possesses the will to fight. Despite her pleas, the brutal sequence of blows continues to hammer his body without mercy. From the shadows, Bai watches the carnage, shaking her head in disappointment at what seems to be a pathetic display. Sensing blood, Wang Tu winds up, preparing to deliver the final, fatal strike against his weakened prey. A split second later, the massive iron pillar smashes into its target with a sickening crunch, spraying a fountain of blood across the arena floor. The gruesome sight leaves the entire audience gasping in shock, and even the assassin himself pauses, surprised by the sheer brutality of the impact. But then, impossible. The young man is still standing, catching the massive iron pillar with his bare hands. Stunned, Wang Tu stammers, unable to comprehend why this dying boy is still resisting. Blood dripping from his lips, Lingan grins and reveals his strategy with his energy nearly depleted. He had to gamble everything on a single, decisive punch. Wang Tu sneers, his arrogance returning. He asks if the boy really believes a desperate strike from a dying ember can harm him. In that split second, the fist buries itself deep into the side of Wang Tu's torso. The assassin's expression instantly shifts from mockery to pure horror. A terrifying wave of kinetic energy detonates inside him, and he screams as his insides are ravaged by the impact. The force of the blow is catastrophic, sending visible ripples of energy blasting outward across the entire arena. The explosion is so violent that the shockwave rattles the audience stands, leaving thousands of spectators speechless as they witness the impossible reversal. Wang Tu staggers back, staring at the young fighter with eyes wide, his mind unable to process the reality of his destruction. With one final, ragged breath, the assassin collapses to the floor, completely broken. Standing tall amidst his wounds, Lingan is declared the undisputed victor. Face down in the dirt, Wang Tu mutters deliriously that such a defeat is impossible. He demands to know how his opponent could overpower him so easily while coursing with deadly poison. Lingan simply turns his back, offering no answers to a loser. Then, with the piercing gaze, the young man reveals the chilling truth that devastating strike was merely the power he possesses when weakened. Terror fills the defeated man's eyes as he realizes the gap between them, whispering that his opponent is a true monster. The crowd is still reeling from the revelation when instructor Mei Langsing officially announces Lingan as the winner. A subtle, satisfied smile plays on the boy's lips. With the match concluded, the instructors move quickly to purge the deadly poison mist lingering in the arena. Hong Luhong deploys an aerial device that sweeps over the battlefield. The artifact releases a shimmering antidote that falls like rain, instantly neutralizing the toxins and healing those affected. As the healing rain touches his skin, Lingan feels his vitality surging back, his strength fully restored. Suddenly, Mu Rongchan rushes onto the field. She tackles him into a tight hug, praising him for being even more powerful than she ever imagined. This display of affection instantly triggers the fury of Tushan Xiaoyu, who marches toward them with a murderous glare. As the young man is smothered in the embrace, the jealous fox girl closes the distance, ready to tear them apart. With a sharp shout, Tushan Xiaoyu wedges herself between them, warning Mu Rongchan to keep her distance from Lingan. The girl tries to make excuses, but the fox explicitly accuses her of only being interested in his body. Up in the VIP stands, Xiaohu scoffs, complaining that as the main talent, he should be the one surrounded by beauties. Instructor Mei Yanli asks him why he is so delusional. Getting serious, the instructor admits the winner's strength exceeded all expectations. She asks Xiaohu if he is truly confident he can handle such a monster, radiating arrogance. The young master replies that the word lose does not exist in his dictionary. Suddenly, a heavy hand lands on his shoulder. Xiao Chunhua looms behind him, issuing a fine of 500 spirit stones for setting fire to the academy grounds. Outraged, Xiao Hua tries to argue, but Mei Yanli physically restrains him before he does something stupid. She whispers urgently that this man is the head of discipline, and the dean's own uncle crossing him is social suicide. Xiao Chunhua says nothing, merely staring the boy down with a terrifying, silent intensity. Mei Yanli points out that the dean is watching from afar, gritting his teeth. Xiao Hua swallows his pride and hands over the bag of spirit stones. But the discipline master isn't done. He immediately slaps him with another penalty. This time, it is a fine of 1,000 stones for maliciously attacking a staff member. Xiao Hua explodes in rage, but under Mei Yanli's pressure, he is forced to pay up. As soon as they retreat, Xiao Hua falls to his knees, swearing to the heavens that he will make the dean and that old man pay double for this humiliation. Seething with accumulated rage, Xiao Hua casts a venomous glare toward the arena floor. He locks eyes on Wu Lingan, irrationally blaming the winner for his own financial ruin and frustration. Down below, Wu Lingan shudders, feeling a sudden chill crawl down his spine. He mutters that the air feels strange, leaving Tushan Xiaoyu confused. Moments later, Tanji strolls up, congratulating him on taking down a notorious 5-star assassin. But Wu Lingan remains serious, admitting that the fight was far more dangerous than it appeared to the audience. With a sly grin, the informant reveals the silver lining the battle generated valuable data on Wang Tu's techniques, which he intends to sell for a fortune on the black market. At that exact moment, Instructor Mei Ren calls out to Tanji, reminding him that the first round isn't over yet. He still has to step up. Caught off guard, the boy realizes he's up. With deliberate, cautious steps, he climbs into the arena to confront his opponent. Standing opposite him is Yu Yak, a young man with striking red hair and a gaze as calm as still water, waiting in silence. High above in the VIP seats, Dean Yu Tianqing confirms to Huang Luhong that this challenger is, in fact, his so-called useless grandson. He explains that since the boy refused to inherit the family's secret arts, he had no choice but to ship him off to the academy. A ripple goes through the audience. Students whisper frantically as the truth of the competitor's lineage spreads. While Wu Lingan's group looks on with worry, Tanji remains unfazed, declaring that his opponent is severely underestimating him. Clutching his notebook, he proclaims that even without overwhelming combat power, raw intelligence can bridge the gap in strength. Facing Yu Yak, he reveals his trump card. He has already gathered extensive data on him, simply because he is the dean's grandson. Brimming with confidence, he vows that by wielding the secret arts of the Tanji sect, he won't go down without a fight. The moment the instructor signals the start, the two lock eyes, the tension palpable. Immediately, Tanji activates his divine technique. A mystical third eye snaps open on his forehead. Stunned, Tushan Xiaoyu explains the phenomenon. It is a secret. High-level skill of the Tanji sect, capable of peering into the future. Watching his stance, she notes that he really was hiding an ace up his sleeve. Meanwhile, Yu Yak braces himself, curious to witness this power firsthand. Focusing his spiritual energy, Tanji initiates the Great Deduction. The technique forecasts an 85% probability of an opening earth attack. Right on cue, Yu Yak launches an earth and rock thrust, forcing Tanji to leap aside in a blur of motion. From a distance, Yu Yak watches as the boy lands perfectly balanced atop one of the summoned pillars, flashing a confident smirk. Tanji boasts that the attack was fully calculated. He was never going to get hit. Impressed by his precision, Wu Lingan praises the movement, while Xiaoyu confirms it's all thanks to the celestial eye. She explains that the eye allows Tanji to access the divine wisdom of the Tanji ancestor, almost like a form of possession. In that instant, a powerful aura erupts behind him, manifesting the imposing avatar of an ancient spirit. As the young warrior prepares his counter, a blazing red aura begins to envelop his fists. Tanji's vision flashes a 90% probability of an earth element attack combined with physical martial arts. Then, Yu Yak charges forward at breakneck speed, using the Shining Trail technique to close the distance in a heartbeat. Without a hint of panic, Tanji raises his hand to the exact coordinates his premonition indicated. As the enemy's fist arrives, he manages a precise block. However, the sheer force of the impact shatters his defense and smashes squarely into his face. The blow sends the young visionary flying backward, and he crashes onto the arena floor, out cold. Yu Yak stands over him, watching as the boy lies motionless, completely and utterly defeated. From the stands, Wu Lingan and Tushan Xiaoyu scream his name, stunned by the brutal ending. Though battered, the boy suddenly springs back to his feet, frantically scribbling in his notebook about needing to factor in power difference for next time. The moment he finishes the sentence, he collapses again, leaving Wu Lingan even more worried than before. Instructor Mayren congratulates the young master on his victory, while Wu Lingan wonders if his friend will survive the day. Up above, the dean nods at his grandson's progress but sighs, lamenting that the boy still stubbornly refuses to use the Yu family's signature arts. The fight over, the victor glances up at the instructors in the sky, then turns to walk away. Instructor Mayren nods, granting him permission to leave the stage. Moments later, Wu Lingan is carrying his battered colleague on his back, praising his guts in that third eye technique. Through a swollen face, Tanji mumbles that he has no intention of learning it properly. Wu Lingan sighs, lamenting his own lack of aptitude for such a powerful skill. Suddenly, Instructor Mayren announces that the second round pairings will be completely random and orders the selected students to the stage. From the high seats, both the dean and instructor Huang Lu Hong raise an eyebrow, questioning the decision to switch to a random draw. Elsewhere, Xiaohua worries he might miss his chance to crush Wu Lingan, but Mei Yanli reassures him to be patient. With a sinister smile, the instructor reveals that Wu Lingan has managed to offend far more people than just the two of them. Immediately, Instructor Mayren crumples a piece of paper in his hand and announces that the first match is set. Standing before the lottery machine, he unfolds the papers to reveal the names. As fate or sabotage would have it, the fight is Wu Lingan versus Xiaoyu, who flashes a predatory smile. Tushan, Xiaoyu, and Mo, Rangchan immediately protest, questioning how such a coincidence is possible if the selection is truly random. But Wu Lingan just stares blankly, claiming he didn't hear a single word of the announcement. The instructor snapped back instantly, demanding to know how anyone could accuse them of rigging the results against new disciples. Seizing the moment, Xiaohua stepped forward, declaring his absolute faith that Instructor Mei would never show favoritism. Sensing hesitation, Tanxiao mocked Wu Ling for being arrogant and cowardly, but he cut her off with a sharp look the time for talk was over. He steeled his resolve, knowing that to secure a spot in the elite class, he couldn't afford to give a single inch. As Murong Chan and Tan Xiao admired their companion's intense focus, a hidden observer noted the shift in the young fighter's demeanor. The combatants took their stances, and a heavy silence descended over the arena as the crowd waited for the signal. Xiaohua smirked, his voice dripping with disdain as he remarked that he didn't think his rival had the guts to show his face. Without warning, the young master lunged, striking the floor with his weapon to settle every grudge, old and new. Tushan Xiaoyu screamed about the sneak attack, but Instructor Mei just shrugged, lying through his teeth that the match had already started. Furious, the little fox realized the bitter truth: the entire academy was rigged against her brother. In the ring, the fighters blurred into motion, exchanging rapid-fire blows until the aggressor left an afterimage to confuse his prey. A spectator screamed a warning, but Wu Ling was already spinning, sensing the attack coming from his blind spot. He threw a lightning-fast counterpunch, forcing Xiaohua to admit that the boy's speed was actually impressive. Boom! A massive explosion of blue spirit energy detonated across the stage. Refusing to retreat, the challenger raised his bare arm to block the wave of advancing blue fire. Xiaohua sneered, claiming he had already decoded Wu Ling's style, while Wu Ling just blew on his smoking hand to cool it down. Suddenly, the young man's expression shifted as a critical realization struck him. 3,000 fire dragons! Xiaohua roared, unleashing two colossal beasts of blue flame that tore through the air. The searing heat forced Wu Ling back. He realized instantly that his body couldn't withstand a direct hit. From the sidelines, Instructor Mei watched with a twisted smile, silently urging Xiaohua to finish him off. Bai Di watched with bated breath, waiting for the moment Wu Ling would finally unleash his demonic arts. Cornered at the edge, Wu Ling watched the twin dragons entering the sea charge toward him and braced for impact. He shouted over the roar of the flames, "I have no choice. I have to use full power." Murong Chan and Tan Xiao leaned forward, hearts racing as they waited to see his ultimate move. Wu Ling planted his feet and assumed the stance of a legendary art, shouting, "Immortal technique chest press exercise." A raw wave of kinetic force blasted outward, shattering the blue flames in an instant. "That is not an immortal technique," Xiaohua screamed in disbelief, while Wu Ling simply retorted that he developed it at the gym. Xiaohua grit his teeth, admitting the boy had skill, but warned that his arsenal was far from empty. The scattered dragon energy didn't fade. Instead, it fractured into thousands of tiny embers around the young fighter. In a heartbeat, The sparks bloomed into dozens of fire lotus flowers, covering the arena as Xiaoyu dared him to catch them with bare hands. Faced with this fiery garden of death, Wuling decided it was time for an even stronger technique. He took a deep breath and executed the immortal technique side-to-side jump. Watching from the stands, Zhangma asked if that was a real move, only to get smacked by his senior for asking stupid questions. Wuling vanished into a blur, creating multiple after images as he hopped frantically around the arena. Xiaoyu realized with horror that his rival was using the wind pressure from his jumps to push the flames away, so he prepared the finisher. "Fire rock confinement in prison," he bellowed, and walls of flaming stone erupted from the ground to box the challenger in. "Earth arts," Tan Xiao gasped, while their informant noted there were absolutely no elemental fluctuations. A moment later, Instructor Mei bragged loudly about Xiaohuo's genius. "The 5-element exchange technique," he crowed, causing Wuling to groan that they were just making up names now. Xiaohuo smirked, lecturing him on how the natives of this world were too primitive to understand the 5 elements. High in the VIP seats, Dean Yu Tianqing ordered Elder Hong to record the boy's technique immediately. But when the instructor reminded him of the exorbitant cost of spiritual rock crystals, the dean nearly choked on his tea. Back in the fight, Xiaohua boasted that with his knowledge of universal laws, his variations were infinite. With a final roar, he gathered his power to end it all. "Rock-piercing blast," he screamed, and the walls of fire and stone collapsed inward to crush his opponent. Rocks and flames collapsed onto Wu Lingan. Burying him in the heart of the explosion, Tanji and Murang Chan scream his name, their voices thick with terror as the smoke rises. While the dean cries over his precious lost spirit stones, Huang Lu Hong desperately tries to snap him back to reality. Clutching a massive leg of meat like a weapon, Murang Chan braces herself to dive in, refusing to let Wu Lingan face this alone. But Tan Xiaoyu blocks her path. She warns her not to interfere. Stepping in now would only be a burden to her brother. The little fox exudes total confidence, guaranteeing that a flashy trick like this won't leave a scratch on him. High above, Xiaohuo smirks with supreme arrogance. A mere native of this world stands no chance against him, the true child of destiny. Suddenly, the arena floor begins to quake. Cracks race beneath his feet, wiping the smug look right off his face. Panic ripples through the audience. Everyone looks around wildly, convinced an earthquake is tearing the stadium apart. Tan Xiaoyu just smiles, declaring that her brother Lingan is truly invincible. Boom! The ground explodes from below, erupting in a blinding pillar of yellow energy. Wu Lingan rises from the rubble. He heaves the debris aside, using the super speed bench press, immortal technique. Xiaohuo stares in total shock, his mind unable to process how anyone could survive that. Tan Xiaoyu laughs it off, explaining that those massive stone slabs are featherweights compared to her brother's daily training routine. Amidst the dust, the challenger scoffs. This weight is way too light. Furious, Xiaohu refuses to accept that a local NPC could humiliate him like this. He screams that he is the chosen one. There is absolutely no way he will lose to some random nobody. Desperate, he channels his power, unleashing the metal borrowing Earth's momentum technique to supercharge his weapon. The air crackles as he winds up, ready to deliver a devastating thunderstrike against his opponent. Watching from the VIP seats, the dean sighs. Rage has clouded his grandson's judgment, making him completely forget Wu Lingan's greatest skill. Wu Lingan doesn't flinch. As the attack descends, he triggers another immortal technique, the body rotation exercise. With a magnificent spinning kick, he slams his foot head-on into the enemy's blade, shattering the steel into a million pieces. Time seems to freeze. Xiaohu watches in horror, seeing his own terrified reflection in the shards of his destroyed weapon. Disarmed and defeated, Wu Lingan turns his back, declaring the match over. In the stands, Tan Xiaoyu and Murang Chan saw erupt in cheers for his overwhelming strength. From the shadows, Mei Yanli seethes with rage, unable to comprehend how his champion just lost to a boy with zero cultivation. Victory secured, Wu Lingan casually walks away, leaving his broken enemy in the dust. But Xiaohuo isn't done. He screams from the ground, refusing to accept defeat and commanding Wu Lingan to freeze right there. He scrambles to his feet, begging Master Dan to lend him his ultimate strength. Master Dan manifests, scoffing at the request. He refuses to risk his soul for a meaningless school admission test. Xiaohuo pushes back hard. He argues that his entire journey to this world means nothing if he fails at the very first hurdle. The failure triggers a memory of his past life, an ordinary student, mocked and ridiculed just for reading comics on his way to school. He remembers the sting of being the punchline, always wishing he had the power of a protagonist to exact his revenge. A warning shout snaps him out of the daydream, followed by the blinding headlights of a truck speeding straight for him. That was the moment it all changed, the instant he realized he had been transported into the world of a comic book. In this second life, he started as an outcast young master, constantly humiliated by peers who literally threw mud at him. But he clung to the ring on his finger, swearing he would never be treated as trash again. He soon discovered the ring's secret inside dwelt the spirit of a legendary cultivator named Master Dan. With the Phantom Mentor's guidance, his cultivation skyrocketed, smashing through bottlenecks to reach the chi refinement stage. Armed with new power, he made every bully pay. His meteoric rise stunned his generation and finally forced his family to respect him. He revealed his ultimate ambition to become the Patriarch and prove once and for all that he is no longer weak. Back in the arena, his eyes blaze. He possesses a special ability, and he refuses to be taken down by a mere side character. Master Dan lets out a heavy sigh. He complains, but finally relents. He will help the boy one last time. A burst of energy explodes as Master Dan transfers his accumulated chi, warning that this boost will only last for a few fleeting moments. The young man grins, absorbing the radiant power and assuring his ally that a few moments are all he needs. From the stands, Huang Luhong whispers to Dean Yu Tianing. The chi radiating from the boy feels completely abnormal. The elder cultivator nods gravely. His raw strength is limited, but his true danger lies in his ability to summon the 5-element flames. The boy summons the flame of the water element instantly. He unleashes a tidal wave of explosive water directly at Wu Lingan. It's a direct hit. Wu Lingan is trapped inside a suffocating water prison. Gasping for air as he struggles against the crushing pressure of the aquatic bubble, the crowd gasps. Everyone freezes in disbelief as they realize the kid's cultivation base has just blasted all the way to the Golden Core realm. Mei Yanli screams, "Cheater," instantly, but Tushan Xiaoyu shuts him down cold, demanding he show some actual proof before running his mouth. The challenger sneers at his opponent, taunting that even that freakish superhuman strength is useless against the crushing weight of the water. He doesn't stop there. Channeling the metal element with a twisted grin, he unleashes the Black Iron Shard Thorns technique, aiming to turn his enemy into a pincushion. But Wu Lingan is too fast. He triggers a high-speed swimming art, weaving through the deadly rain of iron spikes like a fish in a stream. Seeing his target slip away, Xiaoyu roars in frustration, vowing there is no escape as he invokes the wood element. Dark, twisting vines burst from the water, coiling around Wu Lingan and locking his limbs in a suffocating grip. As the challenger gloats over the unbreakable bind, Xiaoyu boasts that this is the overwhelming power of a golden core technique. Suddenly, he crunches down on his own finger, blood sprays, and Master Dan yells out in alarm. The kid is burning his own lifeblood. But the boy doesn't care. He snarls back that he only has enough juice for one final blow, and he is taking the win no matter the cost. He begins to chant, cycling through the generation of the 5 elements, fusing every ounce of power he has into a single singularity. The energy builds, compressing in his palm until it erupts into a blinding, searing light. Unleashing hell, he fires the primordial Chai Heavenly Tyrant slash straight at his immobilized victim. Panic sweeps the stands. The power level has shattered the limits of chi refinement just as the crowd screams for mercy. Dean Yuaning flashes into the arena. In a split second, the Dean throws up a crimson energy barrier, fighting to contain the devastating shockwave. As the shield holds back the inferno, a student mutters that joining this academy was the best choice ever, barely noticing the Dean's exposed prosthetic leg planting him firm. Behind the blast, Xiaoyu screams out his desperation. He refuses to be ignored any longer. He has to win, right here, right now. The beam of pure energy slams head-on into the water prison, completely swallowing Wu Lingan's silhouette in a catastrophic explosion. Yet, deep inside that bubble of destruction, Wu Lingan whispers an apology. He clenches his fist, and with a mere flex, the binding vines shatter into dust. Xiaoyu watches in horror. Wu Lingan declares calmly that he has a much bigger reason to never ever lose. He winds up for an immortal art, the common straight punch. His fist collides directly with the energy beam, the sheer pressure blasting Xiaoyu's robes backward. Xiaoyu stares, his mind unable to comprehend the impossible force crashing against his ultimate attack. A titanic explosion erupts at the impact point. The young challenger screams, unable to believe what is happening. A heartbeat later, blinding white light consumes the entire arena. Safe behind the barrier, the students tremble, realizing that without the Dean, they would all be dead. Amidst the chaos, Wu Tian stares into the smoke, Baffled, how could a punch with zero spiritual energy pack that kind of power? The dust clears. Wu Lingan stands tall, collapsed on his knees. The transmigrator hears Master Dan's grim verdict: they have lost. Stop, the master commands, but Xiaoyu snaps. He refuses to accept it, screaming that as an otherworlder, losing is impossible. Wu Lingan walks up, offers a quiet apology, and raises 2 fingers. Thwack! With a blur of motion, he drives his fingers into Xiaohuo's forehead, smashing him deep into the arena floor. Lying in the crater, Xiaohuo is out cold. Total knockout. Wu Lingan looks down at his fallen foe and drops the bombshell. He's a transmigrator, too. Up in the stands, Mei Yanli scoffs, annoyed and questioning just how strong this guy really is. The victory is official. The crowd erupts, chanting Wu Lingan's name as the announcer declares him the winner. The moment he steps down, Tushan Xiaoyu and Murong-chan tackle him in a hug, praising his insane strength and that killer punch. Flustered by the sudden affection, Wu Lingan scratches his head and admits that the fight totally wiped him out. Murong-chan lights up, promising she has plenty of grub to help him recover. Suddenly, she yanks a gigantic hunk of meat right out of her robes and shoves it toward the fighter. Tushan Xiaoyu immediately snaps at her, yelling at her not to keep her storage pouch in such a weird place. Murong-chan shrugs, claiming it is the spot with the most room, leaving the fox girl blushing and speechless. As Wu Lingan digs in, the fox girl glares at her rival, swearing to herself that she will master cooking so she never loses ground again. Their moment is cut short as Mei Yanli butts in, sarcastically asking if they plan to clear the stage so the actual tournament can continue. Wu Lingan starts to leave, then pauses. A thought hits him. He spins around and runs back to where Xiaohuo is still sprawled on the ground. He crouches down, extending a piece of the meat to his rival. "Hey," he asks gently, "want a bite?" The fallen challenger just stares at the food, silence hanging heavy in the air. Smack! Xiaohuo slaps the meat away, screaming that he does not need anyone's damn pity. As the loser limped away in defeat, Tan Xiao vowed to teach him a lesson, but Wu Lingan held her back, admitting he'd be in a foul mood too if the tables were turned. Murong-chan immediately questioned this mercy, but Wu Lingan shrugged, explaining that he held no grudge against a fellow townsman. The 2 girls exchanged blank stares, the sentiment completely flying over their heads. Watching from the shadows, Mei Yanli scoffed at the retreating boy, mocking him for once loudly proclaiming himself heaven's chosen. Seething, the loser realized he needed to scheme a new, darker way to deal with Wu Lingan. Smack! A punishment talisman slapped onto his face, shattering his concentration. Xiaohuo materialized instantly, fining him 100 spirit stones for spitting on the academy grounds. Caught red-handed by the enforcer and powerless to resist, the young man gritted his teeth and agreed to pay the fine immediately. As he handed over the stones, he swore a silent oath Wu Lingan would pay dearly for this absolute humiliation. At that exact moment, the winner let out a loud, unexpected sneeze. Murong-chan rushed to offer him ginger soup, but he waved it off, joking that someone must be cursing his name. Suddenly, a voice pierced the air calling his name. He spun around to see BD standing high atop the arena, a face he recognized instantly. Nearby, Mei Yanli frowned, muttering that it wasn't time for the students to start brawling just yet. Ignoring the instructor completely, BD locked eyes with the young man, acknowledging his strength but challenging his arrogance in ignoring his peers. In the distance, Xiaohua shook his head, amazed that the girl had offended 2 people the moment she arrived, while marveling at how easily the previous challenger had fallen. Then came the accusation BD declared that if no one else would expose his demonic cultivation techniques, she would do it herself. Wu Lingan blinked, utterly confused, and asked the young woman what on earth she was talking about. She demanded Mei Yanli move up her fight. The instructor agreed, but noted that an opponent had to be chosen by lot. The instructor's lips curled into an amused smile when the defiant student rejected the lottery system entirely. Sword in hand, B-Dai issued a bold challenge. She invited every single advanced student to face her at once. Everyone, that is, except Wu Lingan. A disciple in the crowd sneered, asking if she thought she was invincible. Another replied grimly, "Actually, that level of power is enough." Watching the drama unfold, Xiaohua confessed to Master Dan that this fierce woman was exactly his type. But the spirit retorted that she clearly only had eyes for Wu Lingan. The elder then dropped a harsh reminder Wu Lingan was also a transmigrator. He advised his pupil to stop daydreaming about being the sole heaven's chosen and focus on his training. But the young man smirked, arguing that a rival with the same origin only confirmed his own status as the protagonist, leaving his master thoroughly annoyed. With a determined glare, he promised himself he would crush every obstacle and opponent in his path. High above, Elder Hong asked if this mass brawl violated the rules, but Dean Yutian chuckled, replying that a little fire in the youth was good for the soul. The dean asked BD if she was sure. She nodded sharply. She had no time to waste. Satisfied, Yutian announced he was eager to witness the true skills of this new generation. Wasting no more time, Mei Yanli shouted across the arena, declaring the battle officially begun. Outraged by the disrespect, a swarm of students attacked at once, screaming at her to pay for her arrogance. Unfazed, the swordswoman dismissed their assault as cheap tricks. She activated the dance of the 100 sentinel swords, conjuring a swirling barrier of blades. One challenger roared, vowing to break her defense with brute force as he charged the circle of steel. He raised his weapon high, unleashing the frenzied blade of the purple thunderstrike. The young woman watched him coolly, asking if he really wanted to test his strength against hers. The attack collided with the barrier in a blinding flash, only to be stopped dead by the cultivator's massive greatsword. Boom! A massive explosion erupted, the shockwave blasting the surrounding students backward like ragdolls. The lead attacker was launched clear out of the arena, crashing hard into the dirt before the stunned spectators. In the crowd, Zhang Ma gasped, declaring she was indeed the greatest genius of their generation for defeating the young master of the Wild Blade sect with a single devastating blow. Tanji added that the swordsmanship of Eujian Peak was truly impressive. As the victor gazed down at her fallen foes, turning to his companion, Tanji asked Zhongma why he hadn't entered the ring, given his recent promotion. With a haughty smile, the young master replied he wouldn't demean himself by losing to a mere subordinate, leaving Tanji confused by such pride. Suddenly, Baidi caught movement in the dust. A surviving student lunged, aiming a cowardly strike at her back. With a fluid spin, the swordswoman disarmed him instantly and launched him skyward with the sheer force of her blade. Sensing a brief opening, the last challenger standing signals the others it is time to launch a desperate, all-out assault. They rush her in a chaotic wave, forcing the swordswoman into a defensive dance while they scream in frustration that her stamina seems infinite. Suddenly, the cultivator snaps her fingers into a precise hand seal, declaring she will now command the blade with pure spiritual energy. A blinding pillar of light erupts as the warrior rises, hovering effortlessly atop her blade, leaving the crowd wondering if she has already achieved the legendary Golden Core stage. Zhang Ma cuts through the awe, explaining that this isn't true flight, but a specialized transport technique from Eujian Peak. High above the arena, rippling halos of raw energy begin to materialize around her silhouette in midair. Down in the dirt, a beaten student squints through the glare, shouting that he can't see the climax of the fight through her dazzling display. She raises her weapon, invoking the ascension of 10,000 swords instantly. The sky darkens as a torrential downpour of energy blades screams toward the earth. There is no escape in a heartbeat. Every remaining opponent is pinned to the stone floor, completely incapacitated by the precision strikes. Watching from the sidelines, Tucson Xiaoyu admits the swordswoman is formidable, but notes she still pales in comparison to the monster that is Wu Lingan. One of the fallen students struggles to utter a protest, but his words are choked off by a violent cough of blood. "Why me?" the injured boy groans, while another whispers that the young warrior surely targeted them with malicious intent. From the shadows, a masked figure observes her descent, murmuring to himself that she has grown far more lethal than he anticipated. The dust settles, and the announcer's voice booms across the stadium. Bai Di is the undisputed champion of the melee. Victory secured. She doesn't celebrate. Instead, her icy gaze locks onto Wu Lingan, and she declares it is time to finally settle their score, unfazed. The young man steps into the ring and asks if she needs a break, but she sharply replies that rest is unnecessary. She scoffs, claiming that wiping out the previous mob cost her almost no energy at all. Up in the VIP box, Di Neon turns to Huang Luhong and orders him to let the two strongest students of the class tear each other apart. Nodding, Huang Luhong deploys a swarm of surveillance drones to capture every frame of the impending duel. The machines buzz into action, ruthlessly clearing the battlefield. One drone drags a groaning student away by his hair, ignoring his cries of agony. Unsure how to navigate the tension, Wu Lingan attempts to break the ice with some awkward small talk. Bai Di cuts him off instantly, vowing to force his hand and expose his true identity as a hidden demonic cultivator. He laughs, shaking his head at the absurdity, and holds a blade to his own neck to prove he has zero cultivation. Dropping the act, Wu Lingan demands to know why she harbors such murderous intent toward him, regardless of what he is, as, "You know nothing," she screams, as a vision of a blood-soaked tragedy from her past flashes before her eyes, fueling her rage. Realizing her killing intent has spiked to critical levels, Wu Lingan braces himself. Talk is over, and he has to survive this. With a primal roar, the cultivator triggers her ultimate technique, sending a colossal pillar of sword energy piercing into the heavens. The pressure is immense. Wu Lingan assesses the spiritual density and realizes instantly that taking that hit directly would mean obliteration. He triggers an immortal art, launching himself skyward the exact moment the cataclysmic energy smashes into the ground. The shockwave propels him like a rocket, sending him soaring high above the explosion as he continues his ascent through the smoke. The crowd is baffled. Zhangma gasps, wondering if that is flight or just insane leg strength, while Tangji grins in admiration. Floating in the stratosphere, Wu Lingan exhales, commenting that he barely managed to slip the noose on that one. But there is no respite. The swordswoman tears through the air on her blade, daring him to dodge as she charges her weapon for another lethal blow. She swings a massive vertical crescent of pure energy slashes downward, aiming to cleave him in two. The attack misses him but devastates the arena floor, kicking up a storm of debris as she touches down amidst the falling rubble. "Isn't this too dangerous?" the pavilion master worries, but Dean Yuen leans forward, eyes gleaming with interest. Back in the ring, the cultivator braces herself, sensing the recoil of an immortal art coming her way. Suddenly, Wu Lingan materializes from the dust and catches her energy blade with nothing but his bare hands. Murong Chan's jaw drops, while Tucson Xiaoyu shudders at his unimaginable strength. Yet Bai Di grits her teeth, pushing harder to reveal his trump cards. She escalates again, summoning a terrifying vortex of swords that swirls ominously above his head. With a sharp command, she brings the sky down on him. A relentless hailstorm of spiritual blades descends. Lying calmly on the ground, the young man simply opens his mouth and begins to inhale the entire attack. The blades impact, but instead of cutting, they dissolve into his body, leaving his opponent paralyzed with shock as he absorbs every ounce of the lethal energy. From the distance, the instructor narrows his eyes, muttering that this impossible power feels disturbingly familiar. Wu Lingan stands, the absorbed energy swirling in his palms as he condenses it all into a volatile sphere of light. With a dismissive flick of his wrist, he tosses the sphere back. "You are barely a warm-up, let alone a match for me." The artifact clatters against the stone floor, eyes burning with fury. The swordswoman refuses to back down, vowing she would die before surrendering to a demonic cultivator. Time rewinds. The scene shifts to 10 years ago atop Eugene Peak, where a child's frantic voice cries out for her mother. It is little Bid, merely 5 years old, beaming with pure joy as she senses spiritual energy for the very first time. Her mother scoops her up in a warm embrace, marveling at the prodigy who guided chi into her body at such a tender age. Eyes shining with pride, Hua predicts greatness. Her daughter will surely grow into a supreme master and bring glory to Eugene Peak. The girl nods vigorously, promising to train harder, basking in the warmth of her mother's praise. A stern male voice shatters the moment. "Don't coddle her with such naive dreams." It is Bai Jianren, her father. He scoffs at the celebration, unimpressed by the mere sensing of chi. "She cannot lead the sect like this," he argues. Hua fires back, citing his own struggles as a child, but he remains unmoved. Talent is nothing without a heart of steel. Turning her back on him, Hua smiles at her daughter. It is time for a birthday feast, ignoring the gloom. Yet, as they walk, Hua whispers a hard truth to the girl her father isn't wrong. To lead this sect as a woman, she must be stronger than anyone else. That spark ignites a fire. The little girl drops to the ground to meditate right there, vowing not to stop until she breaks through to the chai refinement stage. Bai Jianren watches from afar, muttering that he will return later to inspect her progress. But the moment he turns the corner, the facade cracks. He slumps in the shadows, tears streaming down his face, terrified he was too cruel to his little girl. Suddenly, Hua pops up, scaring the life out of him. "I could hear your sobbing from a mile away," she teases. She mocks his tough act playing the tyrant when he can't bear to see his daughter sweat. He insists he must be strict to guide her properly. Hua raises an eyebrow. Is weeping in a corner part of that dignified leadership? He has no answer. Bai Jianren sighs. "The cultivation world is a slaughterhouse. Better she suffers now than loses her life later. Besides, he knows the truth his daughter is the greatest genius of her generation. Night falls. Hua watches silently as the child continues her deep meditation. Worried about the chill wind, she decides to fetch a coat. Eugene Peak sleeps under the silent watch of the moon. Alone in the garden, little Bid pushes her limits, refusing to break her stance. She can feel it, the barrier is thinning. She is inches away from the chi refinement stage. She doubles her focus, believing that if she gets stronger, her parents will stop arguing. Unseen behind her, a shadow coalesces, dripping with demonic intent. Hua returns, balancing a tray of snacks, ready to scold her for staying up so late. In a heartbeat, the shadow erupts into a massive, crimson-wreathed demon. Hua screams her daughter's name in terror. Simultaneously, a second threat emerges on the roof, a demon armed with sword and shield, locking eyes on them. Hua freezes as the realization hits her. Demonic cultivators have breached the peak. The tray crashes to the earth. Yet, amidst the chaos, Bid remains in a trance, chanting to herself that the breakthrough is imminent. Above her, red and blue energies collide in a violent shockwave just as the girl reaches the precipice of power. With one final, desperate push, she breaks through. She spins around, beaming. "Mom, did you sense my advancement already?" There is no time for joy. Hua grabs her, screaming at her to run, pointing to the nightmare hovering above. She shoves the girl away, "Find your father," and throws herself into the path of the strike as dust swallows the impact. Bai Jianren bursts onto the scene with his guards, demanding a status report until his eyes land on the carnage. The demon stands there, its blade buried deep in his wife's chest. She is the only shield between the monster and their child. A roar of pure agony rips from his throat. He unleashes a binding technique, summoning mystical chains to ensnare the intruder. Glowing links constrict the demon, locking it in place. Bai Jianren vaults into the sky, sword raised for execution. He brings the blade down with the weight of a collapsing mountain, cleaving through the beast. The monster falls. He scrambles to Hua, cradling her, lying that everything will be fine. Bid cries out that there is too much blood. "I know," he whispers, voice breaking. "I know." With her final breath, Hua apologizes. She weeps that she failed to protect her daughter fully, leaving the child stained with her own mother's blood. She calls out one last time, and then her hand drops, lifeless. The little girl screamed, shaking the body, "Wake up, please. Open your eyes." But her father just turned his hollow gaze toward her. "Bai, remember, today is your birthday." He pulled her into a crushing embrace, tears streaming down his face. Bai Jianren pressed a heavy sword into her hands. "Your mother is gone," he choked out. "You must protect yourself now." Years later, the arena buzzes with tension. The cultivator points her blade at Lingan, her voice dripping with venom. "I will never surrender to a demonic cultivator," Lingan sighs, "for the last time. I am not one of them." Tears welling in her eyes, Bai grips the hilt until her knuckles turn white. "I swore an oath," she whispers. "I will use this sword to exterminate every last demon." Lingan blinks, genuinely confused by her hostility. But Bai isn't hesitating. "Ordinary strikes won't work on you," she warns, her energy spiking. "But don't underestimate me." She knows the risks. Her father had strictly forbidden this technique before she reached the Golden Core stage. But staring down such a powerful enemy, she sees no other choice. She has to end this now. Bai raises her sword high, the steel humming as she begins the chant, reciting the very same incantation her father used all those years ago. High in the stands, the dean and Huang Luhang lean forward. The pavilion master gasps. "That stance? It's Eugene Peak's ultimate killing art." Dean Yu Tianqing watches, his brow furrowed with deep concern. But the power is too much. As she unleashes the technique, Bai coughs violently, spraying blood across the stones. Lingan drops his guard, stepping forward. "Hey, are you okay?" He never finishes the sentence. Spectral chains, the same ones her father once wielded, burst from the ground, locking the young man's body in a vice grip. Target immobilized, the cultivator summons her remaining strength. She screams the technique's name and brings the sword down for the final execution. Boom! The attack slams into the arena floor with devastating force, kicking up a massive mushroom cloud of dust and debris. In the audience, Meng Chen watches nervously, but Tushan Xiaoyu waves a dismissive hand. "Relax. A hit like that, he probably won't even feel it." Panting in the haze, the girl steadies herself. This strike was designed to slaughter demons, she thinks. It has to be enough. But then, a calm, indifferent voice cuts through the smoke. The competitor freezes, her eyes widening as she scans the drifting dust in disbelief. Wu Lingan strolls out of the cloud, completely unharmed. He dusts off his shoulder. Are you done yet? The girl stands paralyzed, stunned into silence. What? Bai stammers, trembling. What kind of demon are you? How did you take no damage? Wu Lingan sighs. I told you. I'm not a demonic cultivator. She doesn't hear him. Her mind races, spiraling into doubt. Is there something wrong with my technique? Did I fail because I haven't reached the golden core stage? If only I had more strength. I could have killed him. Up in the VIP box. Dean Yu Tianqing watches the scene, a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. Back in the ring, Bai snaps. She flares her aura, reckless and wild. I don't care about the limits, she screams. I will break them to annihilate you. Suddenly, the air turns frigid. In the blink of an eye, the Dean materializes behind her, his presence terrifying. He places a heavy hand on her shoulder. The competition is over, he announces, his voice leaving no room for argument. The crowd whispers, did he stop it to save Wu Lingan? But in the shadows, a masked man chuckles. Too late, you can't stop what's coming. He raises a finger and fires a condensed beam of dark energy straight at the arena. The blast tears across the battlefield and strikes Bai squarely in the back of the neck. Beside her, the Dean senses the shift instantly. A strange, dark aura begins to swirl around her body. Yu Tianqing turns, his face twisting in alarm. No. A shadow wreathed in malevolent energy erupts from the ground, twisting and taking the form of a nightmare creature. The demon throws its head back and roars, the sound echoing through the stadium. The Dean's face hardens into cold fury. As the monstrosity grows, Yu Tianqing wonders, how did a demonic cultivator infiltrate this event? Instructors, he bellows. Protect the students, I will deal with this threat myself. Bai collapses to her knees, clutching her head, her world spinning in confusion. The demonic creature pivots, advancing on a student. As it moves, a jagged memory pierces Bai's mind, a demon slaughtering her family. The monster leaps to attack. Dean Yu Tianqing blurs into motion to intercept it. Bai tries to fight, but her body's paralyzed. She watches helplessly as the Dean jumps in front, blocking the demon's blow. High above, the masked man sighs. Not chaotic enough yet. He signals his followers. Instantly, the arena floor ripples as dozens of shadow creatures emerge. Examiner Huang Luhong draws his weapon. We're under siege. There's more than one demonic cultivator here. Instructor Mei Yanli steps forward. I'll hold them off Xiao Chunhuo. Get the students to safety. But Xiao Chunhuo smiles, a confident grin on his face. Run my sacred body makes me untouchable to this filth. The creatures swarm him, but a brilliant energy barrier flares to life, repelling them instantly. Whoa. The students whisper. The instructors are actually reliable. Meanwhile, Tushan Xiaoyu watches the chaos, his expression unreadable. The dust settles, and to everyone's shock, Mei Yanli is still standing without a single scratch on her. Meanwhile, Dean Yu Tianqing steps up, positioning himself between the student and the looming behemoth. The demon throws a massive punch, but the Dean blocks it just in time, eyes glowing with power. He activates a lethal combat art. Judgment falls from the heavens as the Dean calls down an energy blast, incinerating the horde in one strike. The academy shakes from the impact, leaving students staring in awe at the master's terrifying power. But the attack takes its toll. Yu Tian is visibly drained. Nearby, Bit shakes off the shock, locking onto a new threat creeping up from the rear. Too slow. The demon blurs into motion, closing the distance before she can even blink. She spins around at the last second, eyes wide, bracing for a hit that feels inevitable. Suddenly, a hand stops the blow cold. Wu Lingan stands there, effortless. Picking on girls not cool. Bid stares, confused why he'd save her after their history. He smirks, nodding at the beast. Is this ugly thing your pet? That comment just makes her blood boil. She snaps back, demanding to know why he's helping someone who treated him like a monster. Wu Lingan just smiles. My father taught me it's the kindness inside that counts. He replies calmly. I know you're a good person, he adds, refusing to let her fall. Suddenly, Bid screams a warning. 2 more enemies are diving in from behind. He doesn't even turn around. He just channels his energy. With a lightning-fast spin, he unleashes a shockwave. Both creatures are vaporized instantly, reduced to nothing but dust. Watching from the sidelines, the dean raises an eyebrow. This kid is dangerous. Utian flares his aura again, launching a rain of energy bolts to purge the rest of the arena. But the nightmare isn't over. The alpha demon rises from the rubble, refusing to stay down. A deafening roar paralyzes the crowd. Lingan sees the shift immediately. The beast is mutating. He moves like a blur, intercepting the monster's blade before it can connect. He catches the steel with his bare hands as the monster screams. Bid refuses to stay back, gripping her weapon with renewed resolve. She breaks away, launching a desperate solo charge straight at the creature. Bullseye. Her blade bites deep into the monster's arm. She looks up, triumphant, but the beast doesn't fall. See, I knew you had a good heart, Lingan quips amidst the chaos. Suddenly, the monster's body melts, collapsing into a spreading pool of dark sludge. Bid stands frozen, ankle deep in the liquid, trying to process what just happened. Then her legs give out. It's not water, it's venom. Lingan's eyes narrow as the danger spikes. The toxic mist thickens, choking the air. Suddenly, the liquid reforms, and the monster pulls its blade back into existence. It lunges forward, aiming to crush them both into paste. Bid screams for him to move, but Lingan is paralyzed by the toxin. Seeing him helpless, she dives in front of him. Steel meets bone. She blocks the blow with her sword, but her strength is fading fast. I can't hold it, she cries. Adrenaline spikes. Lingan forces his body to move, grabbing her and rolling away just as the smash craters the ground. She stares at him, bewildered. How are you not paralyzed? He stays silent. You must have antibodies, she mutters, trying to rationalize his resistance. He tries to ask if she's ever seen a beast like this before, but the battle cuts him short. Even though she is immune to the poison, she admits she is out of her depth against a monster this strong. That word demon triggers a memory of his father. Real cultivators don't look like monsters. Suddenly, the beast begins a terrifying new transformation. A scream of pure rage shatters the air, echoing across the entire stadium. The shockwave blasts Bid backward, desperate. The young man yells, "Use your ultimate move now." She looks at her hands. They are trembling uncontrollably. She can't do it. Just as hope fades, a mysterious hooded figure drops in, grinning like he owns the place. Chin up, chest out. Looks like the hero has arrived to save the day, he announces. Master Dan warns him to be careful, but Xiaoyu laughs. Relax, destiny's on my side. He winks at Bid. Just watch the show. Despite the mockery and exhaustion, the girl forces herself up, ready to go down swinging. The newcomer clasps his hands. Mana surges, condensing into a colossal energy sword, ready to cleave the world in two. Weapon primed. The hooded figure vaults toward the beast. His blade shears the air, slamming into the creature's flank with bone-crushing force. From the sidelines, Lingan screams a warning about the deadly venom oozing from the monster's limb. But the fighter just smirks, claiming he is 2 steps ahead. In a flash, Xiaoyu ignites his aura, engulfing himself in a roaring inferno. The flames coalesce into a massive fire dragon, screaming across the arena to collide with the demonic horror. Boom! The impact detonates, bathing the entire Colosseum in blinding white light. Seizing the momentum, he launches into the sky, raising his weapon for a catastrophic vertical slash to end it all. Impossible. The monster catches the blade on its own arm, stopping the assault dead in its tracks. With a sickening crunch, the beast shatters the energy sword and backhands him across the arena like a rag doll. Bloodied, but unbroken, he refuses to stay down, screaming that as the chosen one, so he will fight until his last breath. The demon answers by unleashing a barrage of dark energy missiles. High in the stands, Bid stands frozen, eyes wide with absolute terror. She realizes the terrifying truth that technique belongs to Eugene Peak, but before she can process the betrayal, the monster roars and rockets toward her at breakneck speed. Lingan does not hesitate. He dives in front of her, taking the monster's spear right through his chest. Collapsing into her arms, he whispers that his debt is finally paid. Suddenly, the sky burns. Dean Yuening descends like a god of war, wreathed in fire, bellowing in fury at the monster who dared touch his students. He manifests a colossal energy avatar, signing the beast's death warrant. Instantly, a swarm of lesser demons rushes to intercept the giant. Surrounded on all sides, Dean Yuaning scoffs at the pests daring to block his path. Shadows away, the masked mastermind watches, noting that the curtain cannot fall on this performance just yet. Cradling him, Bit frantically asks how to purge the poison, but Wu Lingan whispers he is too drained to fight it. Nearby, Tanji recalls the grim reality only direct antibodies can save him now. Desperate, Bid raises her sword to draw her own blood, but a dark shadow lunges before she can strike. The monster is airborne, plummeting down to crush them both into paste with a single blow. There is no time. She drops the sword, grabs Wu Lingan's face, and smashes her lips against his in front of the entire stunned crowd. The world explodes around them, debris raining down, but the kiss does not break. Xiaoyu drops to his knees, heart shattered. The audience erupts. Someone screams, "I knew it. I knew they were together." Meringue-chan clutches her chest in dismay, while Tu-chan Xiao screams in jealous rage for her to let him go. The monster's fist obliterates the ground where they stood, but they are gone. The kiss breaks. Wu Lingan's eyes snap open, his hand glowing with revitalized power. He launches into the air, Bid secure in his arms, cocking back a fist charged with lethal energy. He strikes from below, an uppercut so powerful it sends shockwaves through the beast, blood trickling from his lip from the sheer exertion. Landing softly, he adjusts her grip and announces with a grin his strength is fully restored. Bid stares at him, face burning, heart racing. He flashes a confident smile, and for the first time she realizes he's actually gorgeous. He teases, asking why she's blushing. She quickly stammers that it is just the injuries acting up. Watching the save, Dean Yuaning exhales, relieved his students survived the onslaught. Now, it is payback time. He turns his rage on the demons, unleashing a hellstorm of fire. The masked villain sees the energy barrage coming and deftly raises a shield, deflecting the devastation. That is him. Dean Yuaning points a finger, identifying the puppet master behind the chaos. Die, the Dean commands, and his giant avatar's hand crashes down to flatten the intruder instantly. The earth quakes as the blow connects, kicking up a massive dust cloud, but as the dust settles, the Dean gasps. In the crater lies a wooden substitution dummy. A decoy. Confusion sets in. If the villain is not here, what is his real objective? Cut to the Academy Library Pavilion, quiet, unguarded. Dark portals rip open along the walls. The masked man steps out, mocking the heroes for thinking he would attack head-on. He opens his palm, and a horde of mechanical spider creatures skitters out from a dark sphere. He declares the end game is near. He just needs to retrieve one specific item. The spiders swarm the shelves, hunting. Moments later, one returns, dropping an ancient book at his feet. The masked intruder snatches the artifact, scoffing at the Academy's pathetic excuse for security. Clutching the tome, he grins in triumph until a voice cuts through the silence. Libraries restricted. Trespassing carries a heavy fine. It's the janitor. The intruder sneers, mocking the old man's fall from grace, but the caretaker just shrugs. Not your concern. The guardian points a finger. Fix the mess. Pay the fine. Now. A twisted smile spreads beneath the mask. And if I say no, don't say I didn't warn you. The janitor launches himself forward, thrusting his broom like a spear, but in a flash, the guardian takes a brutal counter hit. The impact sends him flying, blasting him right out of the building. Over at the main arena, Yuaning spots the explosion, trouble at the library pavilion. He barks orders to the other instructors to lock down the students, then sprints toward the smoke. A blur of motion streaks across the sky, closing in on the library at breakneck speed. Watching from the sidelines, Tu-chan Xiao mutters darkly about the world teetering on the edge of a chaotic new era. Back at the ruins, the janitor lashes out with his long beard. The intruder just laughs, pointing out that the so-called guardian is wrecking the place faster than he is. The old man steps out of the dust, unscathed. He calmly adds a structural repair fee to the intruder's tab. Suddenly, the masked man's arm tears itself free, clutching the stolen book. The severed limb vanishes through an energy portal. As a new arm sprouts from his shoulder, the villain sighs, still as stubborn as ever. Aren't you, old man? The guardian's eyes go cold. You don't reason with demons, he charges. The broom crashes down, only to be stopped dead by a wall of dark energy. He doesn't let up, pushing with everything he has. He shatters the barrier. A dangerous light flickers in the guardian's eyes. But the masked man spins, landing a vicious blow. Blocked. The janitor catches the strike on the broom handle, neutralizing the force. The collision triggers a massive shockwave, blowing another chunk off the pavilion. The intruder sneers at the Guardian, boasting that his power has grown beyond anything the old man can imagine. Memories flood back the day he nearly died at his peak. He sees the red-bearded warrior towering over him, blade in hand. I lost that day, the masked man admits, but I didn't leave empty-handed. I took half the secret manual. The image of the legendary Guardian flickers in his mind, sword drawn, guarding the sacred text. Back in reality, he gloats, and now I have the rest. He pauses. Why the silence? The Guardian stands in shadow, saying nothing. Then, finally, that's another fine for property damage. Furious, the intruder morphs his arm into a razor-sharp claw and lunges to end it. The janitor dodges, but the claw snaps back instantly, catching him off guard. Fine. The old man grunts. Guess I have to use this. He grips the broom and unsheathes a gleaming blade from the handle. Steel flashes, the Guardian counters with a blinding slash. Their power collides, rocking the library foundation. The masked man watches in horror as his dark energy arm crumbles to dust. The janitor raises the weapon, flames licking the steel. The remnant fireblade is awake. The masked man recoils, recognizing the legendary sword as a blazing aura erupts around the Guardian. That thing, he scoffs, remembering the past. I thought it was destroyed. You kept a broken toy. The red-bearded warrior smirks. Broken, come find out. He challenges the demon and blurs into motion. The first strike hisses past the invader's face, a hair's breadth from contact. There's no time to recover. The sword crashes down in a devastating vertical arc. Clean cut. The intruder is split right down the middle. As the halves hit the floor, the Guardian exhales. Finally over. But wait, something writhes within the open wound. A grotesque mass bubbles up. The caretaker freezes, eyes widening in disbelief. The corpse levitates, wrapped in suffocating darkness. The mass twists and hardens, birthing a new, monstrous nightmare. Half regenerated, the creature speaks, its voice distorted. You're tougher than I remember, old man. Staring down the beast, the caretaker grips his sword. What kind of forbidden demonic art is this? The monster rises to full height. Doesn't matter. I have what I came for. Once I master the manual, I'll be back for you. Blade in hand, the Guardian locks his eyes on the enemy, swearing this ends here. He's not letting him slip away again. The invader sneers, dropping a chilling ultimatum if the Guardian dares to follow. The academy he protects will be reduced to ash. Dark energy swirls and chokes the air, but the protector stands like a statue, unyielding. With a roar that shakes the ground, he taps into his ultimate reserves. Without hesitation, he drags his arm across the steel edge. Blood meets blade, awakening the weapon's true thirst instantly. A crimson aura erupts from the sword as he renews his vow to stop the villain. But the masked man just laughs, taunting him to try his luck while launching a catastrophic wave of energy. The Guardian launches himself skyward, crashing head-on into the darkness in a blinding explosion of power. In the aftermath, Dean Yutian Qing bursts onto the scene, panic in his voice as he checks on his uncle. The old master drops to one knee, scolding the dean for his recklessness despite his own injuries. He claims he would have ended the intruder right then and there if he hadn't been held back by defending the school. Yutian props up the wounded elder, his face grim. He needs a name who dares attack them like this. The answer stops him cold. The attacker is Manhwa, an ancient nightmare of the cultivation world. Yutian Qing freezes, the blood draining from his face as the terrifying legends of that name come flooding back. He recalls the history books the Righteous Alliance once dispatched over 30 elite masters just to contain this one monster. Visions of that bloody past flash before his eyes. And even then, victory came at a blood-soaked price. More than 20 grandmasters had to die to bring him down. The uncle coughs, pointing out that Yutian should have noticed by now. This wasn't just some random dark magic. It is Manhwa's signature curse, the ability to manipulate the inner demons lurking in a warrior's heart. The dean nods grimly. His gut was right. Those shadows weren't invaders. They were manifestations of fear itself. The old guardian tries to stand, fueled by rage and a need to kill, but his nephew holds him back. It's over for now. Wasting energy won't help. Instead, the elder gives a crucial order: warn the Righteous Alliance immediately. Sema-ua is back, and war is coming. The guardian's grip tightens on his hilt one last time before the blade shatters into particles of light. He admits defeat. He no longer has the strength to be the Academy's shield. When asked about the students, The dean offers a sliver of hope the arena is secure, and the lesser demons have been contained. But suddenly, the old master senses a disturbance. His eyes snap toward the sky in alarm. He spots a single heart demon slipping through the net. He screams at it, daring the shadow to come back and fight, but it is already gone. Back at the arena, the students are blissfully unaware, chattering about how lucky they are to have such powerful teachers protecting them. They jeer at the corpse of a monster, spitting insults. Standing apart, Wu Lingan watches quietly, noting the intense hatred everyone holds for demonic cultivators. Beside him, Bid speaks up, her cheeks slightly pink. She murmurs a quiet thank you for saving her life earlier, but she is not letting him off the hook. She warns him that saving her doesn't clear his name. She is going to dig until she finds out who, or what, he really is. Wu Lingan looks at her, genuinely surprised by her tenacity, but before he can reply, a blinding light manifests directly behind her. It is the escaped heart demon as it lunges for the kill. Wu Lingan shoves Bid aside and spins around, taking the full force of the dark blast himself. She scrambles to catch him, voice trembling as she asks why he would risk his life for her again when he owes her nothing. He just looks at her, face unreadable. As the dust settles, she notices something odd. His clothes are shredded, but he doesn't have a scratch on him. Relieved and annoyed, Bid punches him lightly in the chest, scolding him for making her worry over nothing. Just then, Tuchan Xiaoyu and Murong-chan run up to join them, Murong offering some snacks to help her recover her strength. Whoosh! Dean Yutian materializes out of thin air. He immediately grabs Wu Lingan, checking him over frantically, while Tuchan Xiaoyu demands to know what the crazy old man is doing. Ignoring her, Yutian scans Wu Lingan's body with laser focus, searching for spiritual damage. His face darkens. His worst fears are confirmed. Something has been planted inside the boy. A spiritual scan reveals the horror a heart demon seed lodged deep in Wu Lingan's chest. The dean trembles with rage, swearing vengeance on the monster who did this to a student, oblivious to the death sentence hanging over him. Wu Lingan just awkwardly asks the dean to please let go of his arm. Yutian stares at the boy, baffled by his nonchalance. Suddenly, Tuchan Xiaoyu shoves the dean away, barking at him to unhand her friend. She pulls Wu Lingan back, warning him to stay away from the weird old guy, leaving the dean looking insulted in the background. Recovering his dignity, the dean calls out, asking if Wu Lingan feels any pain or weird sensations. The boy shakes his head. Nope, nothing. Yutian Qing is baffled. That seed is lethal to any cultivator. It should be tearing him apart. Why isn't he screaming? Then it clicks. The dean shouts for them to wait and rushes back with a huge grin. He starts celebrating, loudly proclaiming that Wu Lingan is just a powerless commoner with zero spiritual roots. It is a miracle in disguise without spiritual energy to feed on. The heart demon seed can't grow. It is harmless. He is so happy he ignores Tuchan Xiaoyu, literally biting his arm in annoyance. Still laughing, the dean levitates and shoots into the sky, leaving the students completely bewildered. Far away, shadowy figures watch from the cliffs. Zhongma and Tenji observe the chaos, plotting their next move. High above the chaos, Dean Yu Tianxing hovers in the sky, his voice booming across the grounds to declare that despite the ambush, the exam is officially over. He continues his address, making it clear that every student will be graded strictly on how they handled the crisis today. Power surges from the dean, washing over the crowd as he announces the moment everyone has been waiting for: rankings and dorm assignments. Suddenly, a beam of light strikes Wu Lingan's shoulder, causing him and Tuchan Xiaoyu to spin around in surprise. The dean's voice echoes, explaining that their fate has been decided and all data is now locked into their admission passes. Wu Lingan checks his tag Class D, Male Dormitory Number 8, Bed 1, from the air. The dean dismisses them, ordering everyone to their quarters to prepare for tomorrow. Tuchan Xiaoyu pumps her fist, buzzing with adrenaline, and urges him to get moving toward the dorms immediately. As they walk, Wu Lingan asks if she got a room assignment too, but she just smirks, reminding him she isn't exactly a student. She leans in close, a mischievous glint in her eyes, and whispers that, as his guardian, it is only natural she sleeps right next to him. I probably have a roommate, he counters, but she just shrugs and suggests kicking them out, unaware that Bai Di is standing nearby, listening to every word. Bai Di stares down at her own admission pass, her expression unreadable. The scene cuts to the living quarters of the Swantian Academy as the pair navigates the winding paths. Wu Lingan hauls his gear, noticing the atmosphere changing. This is the sticks, he mutters. Remote location, barely any spiritual energy. Tushan Xiaoyu is fuming that they put a fighter of his caliber in such a dump, but Wu Lingan accepts it calmly as the lot of a freshman. Moments later, they stand before a weathered sign, male dormitory number 8. The door is unlocked with light spilling out, suggesting his roommate beat him to it. He pushes the door open, leaning in to introduce himself like a polite neighbor. Hello, I'm... The words die in his throat as his eyes adjust to the scene inside. Standing there is Bai Di, fresh from the shower and wearing nothing but a towel, panic spikes, and Wu Lingan slams the door shut. Gasping for air while Tushan Xiaoyu looks at him in confusion, he scrambles back to check the sign, confirming he isn't crazy. This is definitely male dormitory number 8. His mind races back to the accidental kiss in the arena. Is this a hallucination? He thinks. Am I trapped in an illusion? Stealing his nerves, he decides to risk one more look to confirm reality. He cracks the door and sees her back as she finishes dressing. Nope, definitely a girl. He shuts the door again, convinced someone is casting a high-level genjutsu on him. Suddenly, the door flies open from the inside, revealing a fully dressed and annoyed Bai Di. Tushan Xiaoyu snaps, demanding to know what she is doing in his room, but Bai Di replies coolly, I live here. She flashes her ID pass as proof, male dormitory 8, bed 2. Tushan Xiaoyu's jaw drops. Wait, are you actually a man in disguise? Bai Di's face flushes with rage. I am absolutely not a man. Wu Lingan steps in. She's definitely a girl. Tushan Xiaoyu narrows her eyes at him immediately. And how exactly do you know that for sure? Bai Di explains she swapped rooms with his original roommate, who is now enjoying the luxury of the top female dormitory. Why? Wu Lingan asks. She grabs him, eyes intense. To watch you. I need to understand your methods. You're the first person my age to ever defeat me. Her age, he thinks, the irony thick considering he's actually 20,000 years old. He sighs and drags his luggage inside, warning her that cohabitation is going to be a massive headache. Relax, Bai Di says, brushing off the earlier incident. What you saw was just an accident. Besides, she adds, glaring at the Fox Guardian, if you can live with a creature like her, you can live with me. Tushan Xiaoyu bristles at the insult. Bai Di promises to be a silent observer, and Wu Lingan reluctantly caves. Tushan Xiaoyu ignores the rival and pats the mattress, but Wu Lingan hesitates. Wait, we're sleeping together. She yanks him down. Where else are you going to sleep, the floor? He eventually gives in. Lights out. As he lies there, he feels eyes on him, across the room. Bai Di feigns sleep, but the tension is palpable. The candle flickers and dies. In the dark, Wu Lingan whispers, Hey, those invaders. Were they really demonic cultivators? Their energy felt wrong, he continues, different from what my father and the others used to fight. Tushan Xiaoyu sighs in the darkness, realizing he's ready for the truth. No more secrets. They aren't just cultivators, she reveals grimly. They are heart demons. The scene shifts to the desolate, moonlit cliffs of Junji Peak. Far away, within a glowing magic circle, astral projections flicker as the elders discuss the attack on Swantian Academy by the demon Sima Ua. I can't believe it, one elder mutters. After all this time, that monster is still breathing. He wounded a sage and stole a forbidden manual. Another reports, we need to bolster our defenses immediately. Dean Yu Tianxing's projection flickers into focus, cutting them off. The manual is the least of our worries. His voice drops, grave and heavy. The heart demon didn't just attack, he revealed himself to the students. He dropped the heavy revelation that to maintain the peace, they had buried the truth. These monsters are born from the dark impurities of cultivators themselves. With the stakes raised, he demanded to know how long they could possibly keep this under wraps now that Sima had returned. The great elder slammed his foot down, firmly declaring that the current world order was absolute and could not be broken. Moments later, a representative stepped forward, offering Tanglong Academy's assistance to the Alliance to handle the crisis. He pressed the point that allies must face this nightmare together, yet the dean remained stoically silent. Discussion over. The elder adjourned the meeting, dispatching those present to hunt for clues and contain the leak immediately. One by one, the astral projections flickered and dissolved, vanishing from the magic circle into thin air. Elsewhere, a shadowy figure gazed into a scrying sphere, scoffing at how easily the so-called #1 academy had been breached. The face in the shadows was Shenny Wang, dean of Tanglong Academy, swearing an oath that his school would rise to become the supreme power. The scene shifts back to men's dormitory 8, where the tension was still thick in the air. Tu Shanshu wrapped up her lecture, emphasizing that this specific danger is why heart demons remain the ultimate taboo in the cultivation world. Silence followed. Realizing the young man hadn't made a sound, she called out his name, expecting a reaction. Unbelievable. Wu Lingan was fast asleep, snoring through her life or death explanation. Her annoyance spiked instantly. Resigned, she decided ignorance might be bliss for him. She settled down, and soon, both drifted into a deep slumber side by side. Dead of night, Bai Di suddenly bolted upright in her bed, alert and rigid. In the pitch black, her eyes flared with an ominous crimson glow. Cut to morning sunlight hitting the dormitory facade. Wu Lingan cracked his eyes open to the morning light. He stretched his limbs, and right beside him, Bai Di mirrored the movement perfectly. The young man froze. He looked to his side, his brain scrambling to process the impossible sight next to him. A split second later, the girl shrieked, instantly accusing him of indecency. The commotion woke the fox. Radiating a dark, murderous aura, she accused the woman of slandering her master. Bai Di fired back, claiming the fox was the one who climbed onto the bed and shoved her onto the floor. Outside, the noise drew a crowd. Students whispered about the competition winner's skills until a hand rose to silence the chatter. Back inside, Wu Lingan awkwardly suggested that maybe Bai Di had been sleepwalking and wandered into his bed by accident. She vehemently denied the accusation, while the fox glared at her, eyes narrowed with deep suspicion. To de-escalate, he reminded everyone it was the first day of class, being late wasn't an option. As the girl scrambled to get ready, his guardian asked if he would let this slide, but Wu Lingan only cared about attendance. Suddenly, the door swung open. Instructor Mayan Li stood there, demanding to know what the eavesdropping students were doing. The boys stammered, trying to play it cool and claiming they were just innocent passers-by with no intention of spying. Terrified, they bolted for the classroom, leaving Bai Di watching their retreat from the doorway. The pair headed toward the school building, but they weren't alone. The girl was trailing right behind them. Wu Lingan asked why she was tagging along since they had different classes. Her reply, watching him, was far more educational. That sparked another round of bickering between the two girls, while Wu Lingan pleaded for a ceasefire. Moments later, they stood before the sign marking the Class D school building. Ignoring the tension, the trio walked in together. Tang immediately popped up, shocked to see Chief Lingan in a place like this. He broke the hard news classes are sorted by performance, and Class D is the dumping ground for the worst students. Wu Lingan groaned. His talent had landed him at the bottom. Tu Shanshu was furious. Hadn't he taken first place? Suddenly, a booming voice from the front ordered the room to shut up. Instructor Mayan Li introduced himself, demanding absolute pin-drop silence in his domain. Tang and Wu Lingan exchanged looks of horror. This tyrant was their homeroom teacher. The teacher wasted no time making an example. He barked at Tang for whispering and hurled a heavy book straight at him. The projectile tore through the air toward the boy's face. In a blur of motion, Wu Lingan snatched the book inches from impact. "Sorry," he muttered. "Instinct." The instructor glared, annoyed at the interference, while Tang whispered a breathless thank you. With a heavy thud, Mayan Li slammed a stack of manuals onto the desk, silencing the room once more. He announced the start of their first class at Xuantian Academy. With a wave of energy, the books levitated from the stack, flying out to land before each student. The master explained this was the Alliance's standard Chai training manual. They were to follow it to the letter. A student immediately voiced a complaint. Shouldn't everyone here be past the basic Chi refining stage? Wu Lingan's eyes went wide in surprise. Thwack! The instructor slams a book onto the boy's head, scoffing that their pathetic techniques don't even hold a candle to the Alliance's power. Sprawled on the floor, the poor kid is left to rot. Bid turns to Wu Lingan, demanding to know why he didn't step in to defend him. Instructor Mei Yanli cuts in, explaining that the Alliance's technique isn't just better, it is the only safe option, and attendance is mandatory. He pivots to the class. Since they claim to have experience with Chi refining, it is time to put that confidence to the test. The ultimatum is brutal guide Chi into your body by the end of this session, or pack your bags, you are expelled. Smirks and nods fill the room, but the color drains from Wu Lingan's face. He is visibly shaken. Clutching the manual, Panic sets in. He has zero experience. How's he supposed to fake this? Bid wastes no time. She shuts her eyes, visualizing the manual's flow, and in a blur of motion, she weaves a hand seal to channel pure energy. It works. A sphere of raw power manifests, crackling at her fingertips. She unleashes it. The beam screams across the room, obliterating a desk on impact. Even Instructor Mei Yanli looks rattled. Tu Chenxiu chimes in. Sure, nailing it on the first try is impressive, but he can't help but call her a show-off. The master approaches, nodding in approval. Good work. Oh, and she'll be paying for that destroyed desk after class. Yanli's gaze shifts to Wu Lingan. Without a spiritual root, the kid doesn't stand a chance of guiding his chi. In the back, a student whispers that the instructor's pants are slipping. Another shrugs, just one of his quirky habits. Apparently. Beside him, the little fox warns him not to overdo it, but the young man shakes his head. He needs to feel the energy. He has to. He steadies himself. Bid watches like a hawk, pen ready to take notes on his technique. He strains, face red, shouting that he finally feels the power building inside. Suddenly, a rumble echoes from his gut. A loud rip tears through the silence. He didn't channel chi, he just passed gas. Tu Chenxiu and Bid are left completely speechless. Defeated on the floor, he whines that he still feels nothing. Bid stares at him, seriously questioning his training methods. He grabs her shoulders, eyes wide, begging her to teach him how to actually feel spiritual energy. Confused but willing, Bid offers a tip. Imagine the body as a bottle. Feel the energy flowing in like water filling a vessel. Wu Lingan shuts his eyes again, visualizing his torso as a hollow bottle filling up, drop by drop. His eyes snap open, he feels it puffed. Another blast of gas escapes. Bid backs away in horror, suggesting he try literally anything else. Cheers erupt around the room as classmates succeed, leaving the young man isolated in his failure. He hangs his head. Bid watches him. Baffled, how can someone physically so strong be so magically inept? Instructor Yanli claps his hands, silencing the room. He warns the winners not to celebrate just yet. He reveals a shimmering energy sphere. Before anyone can ask, he tosses duplicates to every student who passed the first test. A confident student reaches out, grabbing the sphere with both hands. Mistake. The sheer weight crushes him to the floor instantly. He screams in agony. Yanli explains the gimmick. The sphere gets lighter, the more energy you inject. The student grits his teeth, channels his energy, and finally lifts off the ground, grinning. Mei Yanli adds a crucial detail. The sphere only accepts alliance energy. Try anything else, and it becomes an anchor. Tang explains that this energy sphere game is huge in the cultivation world. Wu Lingan nods basically. It is wizard basketball. The instructor winds up and launches several more spheres into the air. He barks an order, use absorbed energy to fill them. The heavy orbs roll toward the students, who brace themselves for the crushing weight. Bid lifts hers like it is a feather. Tanji, however, is sweating bullets, barely holding the weight in his hands. Wu Lingan steps up. He tries to hoist a sphere, but someone shouts a warning. Brute force won't cut it here. Terrified of expulsion, the young man decides to go all out. He summons his spiritual energy, which, to everyone else, just looks like insane physical torque. Veins bulge, muscles lock. He strains with everything he has to rip the heavy sphere from the ground. Miles away, Dean Yutian King is casually fixing his hair in a mirror. His reflection shifts. He spots something approaching in the sky. Fast, too fast. A colossal airship blots out the sun over the academy. Shenwei Wang booms his arrival. From the deck, he watches a beam of light shoot upward. The light coalesces in front of the vessel, revealing Yuan Xing radiating a terrifying aura. The local dean greets the intruder with dripping sarcasm, apologizing for not rolling out the red carpet. The Tanglong leader smirks. He claims he rushed over the moment he heard the academy was in distress. Yutian King eyes the massive entourage suspiciously. The excuse, they are just here to learn from the best. The host flashes a knowing smile, revealing that this confrontation was their true objective all along. Out of nowhere, a volatile sphere of energy blasts from the classroom, rocketing skyward and slamming into the underside of the vessel with a deafening boom. On the deck, Shen barks orders to raise shields, his eyes scanning for threats as he demands to know if demonic cultivators dare to ambush them. Chaos erupts below as the classroom roof gives way, crumbling into a cloud of dust and debris. As the ceiling comes crashing down, Wu Lingan instinctively throws his hands up, bracing himself against the falling ruin. The instructor explodes in rage, screaming at him for his reckless power, while amidst the choking dust, Dean Yu sighs. He knows exactly which troublemaker is behind this mess. Turning toward the silhouette emerging from the smoke, the Dean calls out, checking if Shen survived the impact unscathed. But the moment the visitor steps through the haze, the rogue sphere circles back and smacks him square in the face, sending his entourage into a frenzy. The Yuan-Tian Dean quickly steps in, spinning a lie that it was merely an accidental detonation from one of his experimental spheres to protect the young student. Shen grips the object that struck him, eyeing its explosive potential. Despite his injuries, a twisted grin forms as he challenges them to a tournament using these very spheres. Dean Yu advises him to treat his wounds first, but the deal is struck. An exchange competition between the academies will settle the score. Shortly after, Dean Yu Tianning stands before the gathered students to brief them on the high-stakes situation. He declares the chosen 5 who will bear the academy's honor: Wu Lingan, Ba, Tanji, Zhongma, and Xiaoyu. A hesitant hand rises from the crowd. It is Tanji, nervously asking permission to speak. He stammers that he understands why the others were picked. They were the absolute titans of the admission trials. But his voice trembles as he admits his own strength is bottom tier, terrifyingly afraid he will only bring shame to the academy. All eyes shift to the trembling boy, his confidence crumbling under the pressure of the selection. Wu Lingan steps up, clapping a hand on his shoulder and urging him to trust in his hard work rather than giving in to doubt. From the side, Xiaoyu scoffs, sneering that if hard work were all it took, trash like him would have awakened a spiritual root ages ago. The dean cuts the tension, revealing that Tanji's ability to foresee the future is their ace in the hole. With that settled, Wu Lingan raises his hand for a question of his own. Scratching his head, he asks a bit awkwardly how exactly this energy sphere game is supposed to be played. Bid steps in to explain it is a 5-on-5 aerial battle where they must control the sphere and blast it into a suspended gate. She clarifies that while physical brawling is banned, clashing with raw energy is not just allowed, it is the key to victory. Hearing the intense rules, Wu Lingan wonders if he is really cut out for this, until Dean Yu icily reminds him that this entire mess exists solely because of his explosion. The dean then drops the deadline. The competition kicks off in just 3 days, so every second of training counts. His voice drops to a grave tone as he warns them the Yuan-Tian Academy's reputation hangs by a thread. To sweeten the deal, he dangles the ultimate prize, a golden medallion for every victor. Zhongma explains the stakes. That medallion represents the Academy's highest honor and grants a massive double portion of cultivation resources. Wu Lingan's eyes light up, realizing this is the breakthrough he has been desperate for to advance his training. He is instantly fired up to begin, but he looks around to find his teammates completely lacking his fire. Xiaoyu spits that he won't waste time training with a cripple who can't use spiritual energy, while Zhongma haughtily dismisses the reward, boasting that his family owns the place anyway. Bid sighs, suggesting they ignore the divas and train together, leaving the timid Tanji on the sidelines. She holds up a sphere, demonstrating that the more energy you pour into it, the deadlier your control becomes. A playful spark lights her eyes as she challenges Wu Lingan to try and snatch the sphere from her grasp, a challenge he accepts without hesitation. He lunges with a burst of speed, but she weaves effortlessly out of reach, teasing that he can't just grab it with brute force. An aura of energy flares around her as she watches him. Wu Lingan grins, deciding to ramp up his velocity for a surprise attack, but she is too fast, dancing away and warning him that she won't hand him a victory on a silver platter. In the heat of the dash, he crashes forward, his hands accidentally pressing flat against her chest before she scrambles back, the sphere rolling away forgotten. Xiaoyu immediately accuses him of being a pervert on purpose, while a mortified Wu Lingan bows frantically to apologize. He stammers, asking if Bid is alright, to which she replies coolly that she has already moved past the accident. She glances away, spotting Tuan Xiaoyu lurking in the distance, radiating a dark, jealous aura. Tuan warns her to keep her distance from the boy, while Meringue-chan awkwardly offers snacks to cut the tension. Back in the courtyard, Bid composes herself, insisting they get back to work. Focusing her mind, she weaves a quick hand seal, invoking one of her signature techniques. A ring of spectral swords materializes in the sky as she points upward, instructing Wu Lingan to use them as targets to sharpen his aim. Weighing the sphere in his hand, the young man realizes it is lighter than expected now. It is just a matter of perfecting his shot. He hurls the sphere with everything he's got, aiming for a perfect strike. but the energy sphere ricochets off a sword hilt and goes rogue, flying wild in the wrong direction. Instructor Mei, Yanni storms onto the scene, absolutely furious, threatening to slash his funding for wrecking Academy property. Bid asks, "Did you hear a weird scream just now?" But Wu Lingan quickly changes the subject. Miles away, Dean Shenny Wang watches the chaos, scoffing at the Xuantian Academy's audacity. Clutching the stray sphere, the dean grumbles about being provoked twice in a single day. His disciple, Liang Zheng, rushes to treat his wounds, but Shen waves him off. A mere toy like this couldn't actually hurt him. He orders the student to drop it and focus on the tournament scheduled for 3 days from now. With a steely gaze, he declares that the future of both academies hangs in the balance. Liang Shang takes a solemn vow right then and there to lead Tanglong Academy to total victory against Xuantian. The dean beams, calling him his finest disciple, while the young man silently promises not to let him down. Obsessed with winning, Liangzi stares intensely at a purple crystal in his palm before the scene fades. 3 days later, the Xuantian Academy courtyard is packed. Yu Tianxing stands center stage for the opening ceremony. He asks the students to give a warm welcome to Dean Shen. The visitor walks out, his entire face wrapped in bandages as the crowd politely claps. In the crowd, Wu Lingan and the crew can't help but whisper about the rival dean's bizarre, mummy-like appearance. Shen steps up to the microphone, ready to deliver his keynote address. He launches into a long, stiff speech about honor and importance, instantly boring everyone to tears. The monologue drags on, and students actually start falling asleep standing up. Dean Shen notices the disrespect and decides to teach these freshmen a lesson. He sneers at the simplicity of their training field, but Yu Tian fires back that he prefers investing money in students, not architecture. In response, Shen offers to show them what a real facility looks like. He whips out a golden talisman, slams his hand onto the pavement, and triggers a massive earth technique. A violent tremor rocks the entire campus, making students panic and wonder if the school's collapsing. Screams erupt as a colossal structure begins to tear its way out of the earth. Young Wu Lingan and Bid stand frozen, minds blown by what is unfolding in front of them. A gigantic stone arena rises from the depths, completely encircling the academy courtyard. Bid is terrified by the dean's raw power, while Wu Lingan is mesmerized by the high-level cultivation on display. From the high ground, the leaders order the fighters to gear up while the crowd moves to the stands. The arena floor is set stone-marked like a basketball court. Dean Yutian turns to his squad with a dark look. They must win, no matter the cost. He introduces the home team. The boy without a spiritual root steps up, desperate to claim the cultivation resources. Xiaoyu flashes a cocky grin, promising himself he's going to be the star of this show. He leans in and whispers to his teammate, "I'm going to leave you in the dust," leaving the poor guy totally confused. Meanwhile, Yu Tian keeps the intros rolling and announces the challengers from Tanglong Academy. The camera locks onto their leader, Lang Zi, radiating pure superiority. The rival lineup is revealed: Zhu Long, Lei Lo Ying, Wan Ping, Zhen Lingling Yu, and Liang Zi. Zhen Lingling Yu tries to hype him up, offering some encouragement, but he shuts her down, warning the team not to underestimate their enemies. He glances at his master, vowing to fulfill his old wish at any price. Wan Ping scoffs, telling him to relax before calling the Xuantian team absolute trash. Tenji snaps immediately, screaming that they aren't weaklings. The provoker laughs and challenges him directly, calling him useless, which sends the boy into a blind rage. The Tanglong leader steps in, ordering his man to shut up. They will settle this in the ring. Bid mutters about their arrogance, but her teammate notices something else: they are incredibly well trained. Jiangma confirms it, making everyone nervous. With a deadly serious tone, he reveals the truth. These are undefeated elite talents with massive combat experience. Tanji yells at him for not mentioning this sooner, but the guy just shrugs. Nobody asked. Undeterred, Xiaoyu whips out his weapon, declaring they have nothing to worry about because he is here. He points his blade at the enemy team, swearing with absolute conviction that he will crush them. The young man postures dramatically, ready to swear a blood oath on his weapon. Suddenly, Instructor Mei Yanli appears behind him, snatches the weapon away, and reminds him that spiritual treasures are banned in this match. The Tanglong squad bursts into laughter, openly mocking their opponents for not knowing the rules and predicting an effortless victory. From the VIP stands, Dean Shen jeers at Dean Yutian about his pathetic player selection, but Yu shuts him down, declaring that his opinion is irrelevant. Shen sneers back, claiming he looks forward to watching Yu swallow his pride and admit defeat when the match ends. With a calm, knowing smile, Dean Yu simply warns him not to underestimate the power of these young students. Gazing down at the arena, his expression turns serious. He declares he selected this team because he truly believes they have what it takes to win. On the field, Instructor Mei Yani frisks the young man, ordering him to remove the heavy training weights he's been secretly carrying. High above the arena, Dean Yu shouts in exasperation, demanding to know where the boy was hiding so much gear. Formalities over. The instructor lays down the rules. The match lasts 1 hour with a halftime break, and the team with the most points takes the crown. Holding the glowing energy sphere aloft, she signals everyone to prepare. The game is about to begin. The Tanglong team fans out across their zone, waiting for the whistle, while the Swantian squad settles into their battle formation. A moment later, the sphere is launched into the air with the command to start. Wu Lingan rockets up, determined to secure the first possession, but is stunned to see a blur shoot past him in midair. It's Xiaoyu, surpassing him and declaring the first point is his. But before he can grab the glory, Liangzong teleports in out of nowhere, swatting the sphere away and stealing the initiative. He fires a bullet pass to his ally, Wan Ping, who snatches the ball firmly out of the air. Sphere secured, Wan activates his speed, tearing down the court while Tang positions himself to intercept the runner. His opponent flashes a disdainful smile. "You think you can stop me?" in shock. Tang watches the speedster blaze past him at an incredible velocity. In a single fluid motion, Wan Ping slams the point home, giving them the lead and leaving the boy paralyzed by his speed. 1-0, the instructor announces, as the two deans watch the unfolding drama in stony silence. On the winning side, the Tanglong team erupts in mockery, commenting that their rivals are hopelessly weak. Unfazed by the noise, Bei grabs the ball and snaps at her teammates to stop the infighting. She takes the lead on the attack, driving forward and counting on her allies for cover. Ahead, Liangzong plants his feet, confident no one can breach his defense. However, the young woman zips past him in the blink of an eye, leaving the captain stunned. Panic sets in, and the other Tanglong players scramble to form a defensive wall. Before they can reach her, Xiaoyu leaps to her side and unleashes a massive surge of energy, clearing a path for her. He knocks down 3 opposing players with a powerful wave of force. Immediately, Instructor Mei Yani flashes a yellow card to Xiaoyu for maliciously injuring his opponents. Holding the card, he stares back defiantly, declaring that in this arena, there are no teams, only justice. Despite the foul, Bei continues the play, locking her sights on the goal. She jumps, determined to score, but Zhuo quickly moves to block, casually taking a bite out of a piece of meat he's holding. A split second later, a shockwave erupts from the ground, blasting Bei backward with tremendous force. The dust clears to reveal Zhuo has transformed into a hulking reptilian monster and regained possession of the sphere. As soon as she lands, a black shadow streaks past her, striking the energy sphere right out of the monster's hands. The shadow flings the ball directly to Liangzong, who praises the play with satisfaction. Sphere in hand, he charges toward the opposing field. Zhongma and Tang brace themselves, flaring their intense energy auras to intercept the incoming juggernaut. Without difficulty, Liangzong smashes through their defense and scores the second point of the match. 2-0, the instructor announces, as Xunlingyu praises her leader's skill. After the basket, Liangzong turns his cold gaze toward Wu Lingan and Xiaoyu. The two freeze, surprised and unable to understand the intention behind his stare. With a confident smile, he points a finger at them and declares he won't let them score a single point in this match. Hello everyone. Did you like the story? I loved it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story.